Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto becomes Soul Reaper to release Minato Soul Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. It was bound to happen. He knew it would inevitably come down to this, but he hadn't expected it to be so soon. Running and running from Akatsuki had, in the end, gotten him nowhere. He had prepared for this very moment countless times with Jiraiya and Kakashi, but it still wasn't enough. They had caught up to him in no time. His techniques, his power, they weren't enough to go up against such a strong enemy. And now, he found himself captured, defeated and alone. Although Naruto realized his situation, he couldn't bring himself to care. He had failed to protect his team, that's what hurt the most. It had started out as a simple backup mission to support Shikamaru, but it had turned out horribly wrong. The last thing he remembered before falling unconscious was Ino's scream and Sakura's shout of outrage. Regaining consciousness with the throbbing temple wasn't the most pleasant experience, but he figured it was nothing compared to the pain that was about to be inflicted on him by the entire Akatsuki. Despite that, he stared blankly up at the rocky ceiling of the seemingly underground lair. If there was one thing he could do before he died, it would be to accept his death for what it was and what it would bring. Peace? Destruction? He really couldn't say what would happen once the bijou was removed, but the least he could do was pass with no regrets, and maybe, someday, he'd get that second chance to right any of his previous wrongs. It was a small hope, but it brought comfort to him. Let's begin. He assumed it was the leader who gave the order, though he could hardly bring himself to look. Even when he felt intense pain spread throughout his entire body as if ripping him apart, his gaze did not waver. Slowly, blue eyes dulled and finally closed with one last breath, the feeling of something missing being his final memory before the world went dark for a second time. He could hear a roaring fire in the distance, and the sounds of screams. A groan escaped him and he tried to sit up, immediately falling back down and hitting the ground hard. The commotion seemed far off, but he wasn't sure. Naruto, regaining his senses, wondered where he had landed himself now. This couldn't possibly be heaven, could it? A boy who couldn't be any older than Naruto dodged a burning rafter as it split and fell to the ground. He ducked out of the way so it wouldn't fall on him, and then jumped over it as the laughter of the crazy men who had lit the place on fire echoed behind him. He stumbled and almost fell, but regained his balance enough to turn and see what he had tripped over. A human form. He kneeled down and slapped the cheek of the semi-conscious form. "Oi, wake up!" He grabbed the boy's arm and tugged. "Come on, don't lie in the middle of the street, it's dangerous." He grunted slightly as he pulled the blonde to his feet. Naruto blinked a few times at the stranger who had appeared. Where the hell am I? And who the hell are you?" He glanced around him with more than a little bewilderment. "And what is going on here?" He was thankful for the support, but things were getting more confusing by the minute. Not to mention, why was he in a yukata, of all things, that looked like a good, strong wind could whisk it away? "What do you mean what's going on?" "They're a fire, obviously, idiot!" The boy hollered back as he pulled Naruto along, hurrying around a corner and continuing to run. "You're in District 80 of Rakangai. And right now, we need to get as far away from here as possible." He jumped over another fallen form, wincing. He would have stopped to help, but he had enough to deal with. Without a doubt, Naruto was a new arrival. "How come?" Naruto asked, exasperated. "And you're walking too fast." He was used to running and leaping through trees, but for some reason, his body wasn't cooperating as swiftly as it once had. Death really did things to the body, he supposed, and then left his clouded thoughts at that. He was having a pretty difficult time just concentrating on what was happening. He didn't need to distract himself. "Because the adults in this district are crazy, that's why," he grumbled as he threw open a door that was practically falling of its hinges. He rushed inside and pulled Naruto in as well, closing the door and breathing hard as he peeked out the cracks. As long as the house didn't catch fire, they could escape for the moment. He narrowed his eyes as he saw someone walk by with a sword, blood dripping off the blade. He tensed, but the person continued walking, and he let out an almost inaudible breath of relief. They were safe for now. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw the blood-stained sword. He tensed as well and looked to the boy beside him for the answers he desperately wanted to know. Who are you?" He settled on that simple question for now. His mind was still in shock and his body was tired from the short jog. He didn't think he had the energy to exhaust himself with mere inquiries. "I don't get what's going on. I thought I was killed. But this can't be heaven. Hell, this can't be hell." The boy slammed his hand on Naruto's mouth as his heart jackhammered in his throat. "Shush," he hissed as he waited for the figure to disappear. He didn't want to risk being caught. Once he was sure they were safe, he sighed and removed his hand, turning to Naruto. "You're not too bright, are you?" he grumbled out. You're in Soul Society. This is where souls go once they've detached from their bodies, he said by way of explanation as he sank to the ground and reached into his old, worn yukata, pulling out a small bread roll and biting into it. Soul Society? How did I get here, though? Detached from my body? I remember missing something, and then it was gone, and then so was I. He looked over at the platinum blonde boy munching on his bread, wondering if any of his questions would really be answered. He didn't expect too much at the moment. He just wanted to sleep. A sigh passed through his lips, and he leaned his head back against the wall. What's going to happen now? The other boy chewed his bread slowly as he regarded the new arrival, contemplating how much he should tell him and how much he should let the other find out for himself. After all, he hadn't had anyone telling him how Soul Society worked. He decided to be nice and swallowed what was in his mouth before replying. He had manners, after all. Well, if you're in Soul Society, obviously you died, he informed dryly, as if it were the most logical thing ever, which it was. So that answers how you got here. Detaching from your body is when your soul breaks off from your human body. In other words, you die. He ran a hand through his spiky hair. And as for what's going to happen now, I don't know. Figure it out yourself. I just saved you because I felt like it. He took another bite from his bread. All that talking was impeding on his mealtime. Letting out a huff, Naruto crossed his arms over his chest and considered his newest unwanted companion. Geez, it's not enough to have a Sasuke team in life, I have to get one in death, too. Is the world made up of freaking bastards like this? Do you have to be so cruel to someone who's just died, for God's sake? Did I mention you're a bastard? Twice. The boy bit into his bread again. Or, if you count the Sasuke team, then 3 times. And life hasn't been all that great for me either, you know? He frowned. Death, you know what I mean. He sighed. It's just how things are here. If you're in this district, it's not going to get better. Might as well get used to bastards because we're better than the other people. Idiot, he added for good measure. A muscle twitched above his eye. Don't call me an idiot, bastard. You never did answer the first question I asked. He turned his head to the side to watch a spider crawl along the floor, the building probably abandoned if the thick layer of dust was anything to go by. Do all souls need food? Because I'm starving too, you know. You could offer me some, you pig. He gave the boy his best impressionable puppy dog-like eyes for effect, staring at him as if begging for scraps. The bread froze halfway to the boy's mouth as he stared at Naruto before lowering it slightly. You're hungry? He had to admit, that was a shocker. You mean, you're actually hungry? You need food? It was almost unfathomable. This idiot needed food? That wasn't possible. What's so shocking? I'm hungry, therefore I think I'll take some of this. He reached over and snapped off the bottom section of the bread, biting into it without a care. You're going to keep using excuses so you don't have to tell me your name, aren't you? Hey! The boy hollered. I needed that damn food. He stood up, clenching his fists. It's not like you need as much as me. And why are you calling me on not having given my name when you haven't either? Where did you learn your manners, you dumbass? You don't just snap off the end of someone's food and then demand to know their name. I understand why you belong in this district, though I continue to wonder what I'm doing here. Naruto stood up, too, feeling threatened. He wiped the crumbs from his mouth, sheepishly admitting to himself that maybe stealing food hadn't been the smartest move. Don't start yelling at me all of a sudden! He shouted right back, growling slightly as he stared at the boy. I don't understand anything that's happening. If you had told me why you needed the food, I wouldn't have touched it. It's your damn fault, bastard. Why did you say I don't need as much as you anyway? Where do you get off saying that? I just got here. I want to know what the hell you meant by half the things you said. And don't bitch at me about manners, buddy. I'll SOC you one before you start preaching that shit. Not everyone here needs food. The boy glared. Only those with high spiritual energy need food, which is why when I find food I like to eat it. You should have stolen your own if you needed it. When you get hungry, you're on your own because barely anyone needs food here. Those who do live in Suriidii. He crossed his arms, annoyed, scowling. And I knew less than you did when I got here, and I managed just fine. You're just a spoiled brat who needs to learn that things are different now that you're in Soul Society. He sniffed. Besides, how was I meant to tell you not to stuff your face when you ripped off the end of my bread and shoved it into your mouth? When did I have time to protest? He asked dryly. Naruto grumbled something under his breath and clenched his hands into fists forcefully. Shut the fuck up, kid. You don't know anything about me, and the last thing I need is your help. I would have been just fine if you had left me where I was. I could have gathered information on this stupid place on my fucking own, but you went and helped me. I just thought a person should live through their obligations. And so you should have just left me alone if you weren't going to help me. Bastard. He spun on his heel and faced the opposite wall, still mumbling under his breath about bastard brats who need to have the stick removed from their asses. I could tell you were doing real well lying on the ground, about to be trampled on and covered with wooden beams engulfed in flames. Next time, I'll let you die all over again. How does that sound? The boy examined the last bit of bread in his hand and sighed. Here, take it, he grumbled, holding it out to Naruto, who had turned back around. Hurry up, before I change my mind. You're kidding, right? You were just shouting at me and now you're offering me food? Damn, I knew it. You're just like Sasuke team. He glared slightly at the offered bit of bread, but his stomach grumbling in protest decided for him just what it wanted. Well, thanks. He snatched the bread quickly before the boy actually did change his mind and nibbled on it, his manners a bit more civil to appease the other boy. So, I'm guessing you're a recently deceased. The boy leaned back against the wall before changing his mind when the wood creaked ominously. He settled for just standing. What's your name, anyway? Since I saved your life, and you keep calling me a bastard, seems only fitting you should tell me your name first. Oh yeah, that. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. He finished off the bread, dusted off his palms, and then offered the boy a hand to shake. So, what's yours, oh mysterious bastard one? The boy just blinked, clearly not amused. Hitsugaya Toshiro. I've been living here about 8 years. He shook Naruto's hand briefly before letting it go and looking around. It seems things have quieted down outside. I should head back to my other shelter. It's safer, not so close to all the fires. Where's that? Naruto asked offhandedly, not really caring either way. He wasn't going to go with some stranger just because they happened to save his life. He would just have to make do and find his own shelter. And you're leaving now? The boy, Toshiro, turned to Naruto. Somewhere safer, like I just said. He rolled his eyes. You're not too good with listening, are you? He opened the door. And yes, I'm leaving now. He paused. Don't follow me, he added, glaring pointedly at Naruto. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto stared at Toshiro like he had just accused him of something foolish. Excuse me, did I say I was going to follow you? I think I'm just fine here, you bastard. Excuse me? Oh, you do have manners. Fancy that. Toshiro turned and left the small, decrepit house, slamming the door behind him for effect. It was ruined by the door falling to the ground in a pile of rotting wood. He should have known better, but he didn't care. Honestly, it really didn't matter whether the blonde, Naruto, followed him or not. He was just sick of hearing the other complain. If he followed silently, as doubtful as that was, then he wouldn't really mind. Who am I kidding? He groaned and rubbed his face. He's going to follow, and follow loudly. Great, just great. Waiting until Toshiro's footsteps were well down the street outside, he snuck out of the abandoned building and kept to the shadows, making sure to put a good distance between him and the person he was following. Only out of curiosity, of course. Being a ninja in his previous life did come in handy. At least he knew the basics of keeping quiet, though he didn't know how long he could keep that up. It just wasn't in his nature. Toshiro stopped at the end of the street before turning and scanning the area. He couldn't hear Naruto, or see him. Weird, I guess he didn't follow me after all. Not what I would have expected from such an idiot. He turned back and continued walking, heading further into the maze of District 80 until he reached another abandoned house that wasn't in quite as bad a condition as the others. He creaked open the door and stepped inside, stretching slightly before rubbing his stomach, which growled loudly. He was still hungry. Pausing in his quick but silent footsteps, Naruto watched Toshiro enter the house, thinking of reasons why he would go in there. It didn't look any better than some of the other houses they had passed, so why had he stopped? Was this that safe place the boy was talking about? Sure, it was far enough away from the mayhem and fire, but in all honesty, Naruto doubted it could be. Even idiots had their moments, and the place really didn't look all that safe. Toshiro sighed as he fell back onto an old, worn-out mattress, staring at the ceiling as he rubbed his aching belly. He was considering moving up in the districts the following day, but he didn't know if his roommate would be up for it. He had met another girl who was just like him a while back, one who needed food. Her name was Hinamori Momo. She was nice, and she seemed to care a lot about him, but he didn't know if she'd be able to move out of District 80. It was tough moving up the line, and he knew it would take its toll on her. If only he had more help, an easier way to keep her safe. When the boy had yet to exit the house that Naruto had been staring at for the past 5 minutes, he decided enough was enough. That, and his curiosity had gotten the better of him. Stepping out of the shadows, he made his way quietly to the front door of the building and cracked it open slightly to see where Toshiro currently occupied the room. Easy as pie, he thought, smiling as he saw the boy barely paying any attention to his surroundings. And that's when something unexpected happened. His ankle gave out on him, and he ended up stumbling into the room like a weak little girl who had just seen her crush. Naruto was beyond embarrassed. He was spread eagle on the floor, looking for the entire world like the idiot people claimed he was. Toshiro sat bolt upright at the loud sound and his eyes fixed on the blonde lying in front of him, turning beet red. The platinum-haired boy himself just stared wide-eyed. There is no way he got all the way in here without me knowing, he thought to himself, absolutely horrified. There was no way the other had escaped detection for this long. He was loud, and obviously very clumsy, so how had he missed him? Oh God, I've hit a new low. Toshiro buried his face in his hands. I can't even tell when idiots are following me anymore. What am I going to do with myself? I can't sink any lower. I may as well move to the last district, and hope I don't trip on my own 2 feet. He let out a groan. You think you've hit a low? I'm a ninja. Ninjas don't have weak ankles. What the hell is going on with my body? Naruto looked up from his sprawled position and then hit his head repeatedly against the hardwood floor. Man, this sucks. I just wanted to spy on you, not end up here. He glared at a crack he found right under his nose. We've both reached new lows, you bastard. Hey, don't compare my low to yours. Toshiro insisted, pointing his index finger at Naruto. Being outwitted by a fool like you clearly requires me to have hit a lower low than you. If I sank any lower, I would be you. This is horrendous. I don't even know what I should do to rectify this. I don't care what's wrong with your damn ankles, what about my new non-existent pride? You snuck up on me. What the hell? I just told you my body's failing me, and you're being a bastard and getting bitchy about your pride. Like it ever existed in the first place. He pushed himself back up, standing properly and dusting off his yukata with disgust. I hate you, I hate this place, I just want to sleep somewhere. Just curl up in a corner and die. I'd rather die again than be here with you. Bastard. He clenched his hands tightly at his sides, fists shaking slightly, from what, he didn't know. You want to die again? That can be arranged. Toshiro stood up angrily, his own yukata hanging haphazardly on his slim frame. The material had slipped off his right shoulder as he glared hatefully at the blonde ninja. I can help end your suffering, but it won't bring my damn pride back. For someone like you to sneak up on me. You. Come on. At least disposing of you will begin to heal my wounded pride. The boy held up his fists. Naruto titled his head a bit. You have to be kidding me. I mean, you just challenged me, the best ninja in my village. I'll kill you before you even lay a hand on me. So, come on. He raised his own fist, dropping easily into his usual fighting stance, but it felt off, for some reason. Laughter escaped Toshiro. Are you kidding me? I've been here 8 years. I know how to control my spirit body better than you, which is why you tripped, O best ninja of your village. He shook his head. What? How many people were there in your village? 2? 3? There's no way you were the best in a larger village. Don't flatter yourself. He didn't even bother getting into a fighting stance. He would be able to avoid Naruto's blows easily. Letting out a growl of rage, he lunged for Toshiro immediately, directing a fist toward the boy's stomach right off the bat. It was blocked, causing Naruto to lose balance and shift slightly, so when he fell he could at least take the other down with him, grabbing Toshiro's legs and yanking the boy to the floor none too gently. Toshiro cried out as his head connected painfully into the wooden floor and then grunted, kicking the other away and getting back to his feet quickly. He loomed over Naruto and then slammed his foot into the blonde's face, pressing it into the floor. You should choose your fights more wisely, Naruto, he snapped. Your body hasn't adjusted to this world yet, and you think you can fight someone like me? I've been here so long that even if I left for 2 years and came back my body wouldn't be affected. You son of a… He cut himself off and punched Toshiro's leg with a bit more force than originally intended. At least it allowed him the ability to move more freely and get back up on his feet to face the other boy again. You must think highly of yourself, too, you prideless bastard. He smirked, wiped the dirt from his face, and straightened into a fighting stance once more. That was just a warm-up. Let's go. A warm-up? Toshiro rolled his eyes. Please, it hurts to watch you. You're going to end up with your face against the ground again. If you want to die again, like you said, just stand still and I'll make it, well, not quick and painless, but you know, I'll try and limit the suffering. He got into his own stance, feeling slightly awkward. He wasn't all that good with hand-to-hand combat, to be honest. He preferred to have a weapon. You call that a fighting stance? Ha! It makes me sick just looking at it. There are so many openings, Naruto stated with a confidence he really didn't feel at the moment, but he couldn't let the boy get away with bad-mouthing him. If it came down to it, he'd just keep punching until he hit him at least once. Just once, and he would be happy. Well, are you coming? I don't have all day, bastard. Why do I have to waste my time lunging at you? Insisted Toshiro. You're the one who'll fall flat on your face if you move, so I'm going to stand here and wait for you to hit the ground again because your ankles are weak, or whatever. He grinned. Come on, Naruto. I haven't got all day. I'd like to get more food before moving up one district. You're kind of limiting the time before nightfall. Don't get cocky. He narrowed his eyes, concentrating all his effort into making his limbs cooperate properly this time. You say you don't have all day. Fine. I'll pound you into the ground. He lunged just like his opening attack before, but this time, with the strength he lacked previously, he feinted to the right and then threw a kick into one of Toshiro's blind spots on the left. The blow barely hit the other boy, but it still clipped him, causing him to stumble slightly to regain his balance. He hurriedly righted himself and turned back to Naruto, swinging his fist toward the center of the blonde's abdomen. Because the other's reflexes were still slow, even if he managed to avoid it, it would still hit him in the side at the very least. It was all Toshiro needed right now. He just required Naruto back on the ground so he could kick him. Naruto took the punch square in the gut, causing him to double over, though he did not fall. He straightened himself bit by bit, not allowing himself to show weakness in front of such an opponent as Toshiro. He coughed, winded from everything he had recently been doing, but refusing to give up. That all you got, bastard? Toshiro frowned. Damn, I was hoping that would take him down, he thought as he shifted and went to punch the blonde again. He was surprisingly tough for someone who had just entered Soul Society, and the other's body was starting to adapt much faster than Toshiro's had. He didn't understand. When he had arrived at Soul Society, it had taken him nearly 2 months to move properly, and here this kid was, adapting at almost 3 times the speed as everyone else. What the hell is he? Naruto coughed one last time and then fixed his posture completely, dropping his arms back to his sides instead of using them as a protective shield around his stomach. He glared at Toshiro spitefully after avoiding the oncoming punch, egging the boy on. Well, what are you waiting for? Another cheap shot? I don't need to hear this from you, Toshiro insisted angrily. You're like a little kid. So annoying. He let out an angered cry as he lunged at Naruto, slamming into his stomach and sending him crashing to the ground, wrestling with him when the other tried to scramble free. You're so stupid. What is your problem? I don't have a problem, you bastard brat. You started this stupid fist fight. Naruto growled back just as angrily, struggling to break free from the white-haired boy. He lashed out with his legs, even bucking to make Toshiro get off him. Get the hell away. He felt more than saw the punch directed at his face, his cheek stinging with the impact. Ouch. Another damn cheap shot. He continued to strike out at the other, trying his best to free himself. And you call me an idiot? At least I know how to fight, which is obvious you know nothing. I know how to fight, Toshiro hollered. I just need a weapon. Unlike you, I don't resort to barbarianism. Toshiro hit him in the face again before driving another fist into the blonde's stomach. He was getting tired, and he wasn't even getting hit. How much energy does this guy have? And how high is his damn pain threshold? Why won't he just pass out or something? He was getting frustrated by now. Hinamori Momo was surprised to hear noises coming from the shelter Toshiro had made for them both. She approached the building cautiously, shifting the small basket of various fruits under her arms so she had at least had one free hand. When she pulled open the door to the house, the last thing she expected to see was her white-haired friend punching another blonde boy without pause. The only thing she considered the person could be was an intruder. Fear washed over her. She dropped the basket she carried and hurried into the building, hastily making her way to Toshiro's side. What's going on, Hitsugaya-kun? Toshiro looked up, pausing in his punching. Hinamori. He pulled away from Naruto. It's nothing. He followed me home, and he's annoying. He just arrived at Soul Society. His name is Naruto. Toshiro crossed his arms, irritated. He might be like us, because he stole some of my bread, but I don't think it'd be safe to keep him with us. He's loud and brash, and very annoying. He paused. And dangerous, he added in, just to help his case. He really didn't like the vibes he got from Naruto. He couldn't explain what they were, but he just didn't like them. Momo looked from the battered blonde boy to her friend and then back to the intruder, wondering what was truly going on. Admittedly, she was wary of any new arrivals since their actions were unpredictable after learning they were dead, but that was no reason to kick them out on the streets. You punched him because he followed you, Hitsugaya-kun? But he's like us, maybe we could help him? She glanced up at Toshiro for a moment before directing her gaze to her feet. It's just a thought, but with 3 of us wouldn't it be easier to protect each other? From the floor, Naruto listened in silence, panting and trying to regain his breath. That brat sure was persistent, if nothing else. Even now, he was making it clear he wanted Naruto nowhere near him. What, did his forehead read avoid at any costs? And then, the girl who had just appeared, what was she thinking in asking the brat to reconsider? Didn't she understand they wouldn't get along no matter the circumstances? Naruto sighed, tilting his head away from the talking duo. That girl, strangely enough, reminded him of Hinata. So, in a way, he felt he could at least trust her. Unlike the white-haired jerk, who was just a bastard. Toshiro opened his mouth to object, but then snapped it shut with a sigh. Hinamori wanted to trust him, but he could be dangerous. After all, he really was unpredictable. Toshiro sighed again. He supposed he shouldn't be that much of a jerk. Naruto had just died. Considering that, he was taking his death pretty well. Much better than Toshiro had, at any rate. And what the girl had said was true. With 3 of them, it would be easier to gather food and protect one another. Plus, since he and Momo would be trying to go up to the other districts, it would be nice knowing someone like Naruto had his back. Especially since the other didn't seem to know when to stay down. He was pretty good at fighting, too, and Toshiro suspected he would be fantastic once he got used to his spirit body. With another explosive sigh, he nodded. Fine, he can stay, but he makes one wrong move and he's out of here. Smiling in appreciation of her friend's answer, she walked over to Naruto and offered him a hand up. Well, there you have it, Momo said softly. Welcome, Naruto-kun, to Rakangai. She looked away shyly as the blonde accepted her hand and pulled himself up. I'm Hinamori Momo, by the way. Suddenly her eyes widened, startling Naruto, who thought he might have done something wrong already. Oh, I almost forgot about this. She dropped his hand and rushed to the doorway to retrieve the fruit she had brought back home with her. Is she always like that? Naruto questioned Toshiro, scratching the back of his neck. She reminds me a lot of a certain someone I met a while back when I was alive, that is. He chuckled. I guess if this is the afterlife, it isn't so bad. Not boring at all like I thought it would be. Toshiro rolled his eyes. Yes, she's always like that. He headed for the door to help Momo pick up the rest of the fruits. I told you that you didn't have to get any food, Hinamori. I got us some bread, but then someone stole half of it. He turned his head to glare at Naruto. I was going to save some for you, but he got greedy. Sorry. He put the fruits he had gathered back into the basket and waited for his friend to stand before following suit. Forgive me. Naruto held up his hands defensively. From now on I won't touch your food, all right? He huffed and crossed his arms. Sheesh, you're so mean, Hitsugaya. Momo giggled as she stood back up, carrying the basket into the house and shutting the door. Well, you can have some of this then, Naruto-kun. I don't mind. I usually eat less than Hitsugaya-kun anyway. What, are you saying I eat too much? Toshiro was embarrassed, poking at his stomach. Sorry, it's just, I get so hungry, and I don't even know why. I'm sorry, Hinamori. He smiled sheepishly at Momo. How about you, Naruto? Are you still really hungry? 'Cause if so, you must be like me. Toshiro leaned back against the door, knowing at least that this one was certainly sturdier than the one in the other house. Naruto flushed under Momo's inquisitive stare at the question. Now that Toshiro mentioned it, he still was rather hungry, but he wasn't going to steal any more food even if Momo had insisted. Being scolded once was plenty for him. Yeah, sort of. But I'll go look for my own. I think there's only enough for the 2 of you. It's fine. Hitsugaya-kun can stand to lose a few pounds. He is starting to get a bit chubby, she teased her friend, setting the basket on a shaky table that looked like it could barely support the weight. Here. She tossed the resistant blonde an apple, and then threw a plum toward Toshiro. And there you go, too. Hinamori, Toshiro said, embarrassed, as he caught the plum. I'm not that chubby. I must have more spiritual energy, is all, he muttered as he took a bite. And don't worry about eating our food, you'll just have to make sure you pull your weight, too. Toshiro shrugged noncommittally. His head then snapped to the side as he heard noises outside. He ducked and motioned for the other 2 to do so, as well. He pressed his back against the wall beside the door, narrowing his eyes as he listened. He hoped whoever was out there was a friend, or at the very least, not someone dangerous. Naruto took his cue from Toshiro, pulling Momo with him to the other side of the door so they could look outside through the cracks and still remain hidden from whoever it was that had arrived. He looked over at Toshiro, hoping that maybe he knew the person out there. Loosening his grip on Momo's arm, he glanced down at her, worried since she seemed to be shaking. She was frightened? That didn't bode well with Naruto. Toshiro tensed as the doorknob turned and the door creaked open. All he needed to see was the beefy build of the man on the other side, and he knew the person was bad news. He let out a short, angry cry and lunged, knowing there was no way they would be able to hide now that the door was open. The man laughed, and knocked Toshiro away easily with one hand, slamming him into the opposite wall. The boy cried out as his head struck the wall, and he fell to the ground. He grunted as he tried to stand once more but was kicked in the face, instead. Pain exploded across his cheekbone, and he felt blood trickling down the side of his face from near his hairline. What have we got here? The man grinned as he turned around and scanned the area. His eyes fell on the barely concealed forms of Naruto and Momo on the other side of the door, which was still ajar. Hey there, pretty lady, how about coming with me? His grin became more lecherous as he approached the dark-haired girl and Naruto. Run! Toshiro insisted as he struggled to his feet, unable to see straight. Damn it, if he had some kind of weapon, this wouldn't even be a problem. Ignoring Toshiro's shout, Naruto stood in front of Momo protectively. If the boy wanted him to pull his weight from now on, he would start now. He wasn't going to run away with her and just leave the other behind. Instead, he would protect them both, even if he had to die again. Momo, he whispered, staring at the hulking figure calling out to the girl behind him. The man's language was disgustingly crude. I'll make an opening. In that moment, take Hitsugaya and run. Got it? He turned his head just enough to see her nod in understanding. Good. Come on, sweetheart, let's go. The man licked his lips as he got closer, his arm reaching out to knock Naruto aside. Fool, run! Toshiro shouted. He knew Naruto wasn't too bad at fighting, but he was still new to Soul Society. He couldn't have mastered how to move yet. And Momo, God, why wasn't she trying to get away? They were both going to be useless while that man went off with Momo one way or another. No, no, no! Toshiro thought as he stumbled forward, rubbing the blood out of his eyes. The man just laughed as he reached out, grabbing the front of Naruto's yukata and preparing to throw him away. Naruto didn't even flinch, driving a fist into the man's pudgy stomach. The man, caught off guard, let go of Naruto's yukata. Mistake number one for the trespasser who dared barrage in and act like he owned the place. He knew his height hardly compared to the behemoth before him, but all he needed to do was create an opening for the other two and then he could escape himself. So, with that idea in mind, he crouched and jumped at the man, fist pulled back ready to slam into the face of the intruder. The man let out a grunt as the wind was knocked out of him, and then cried out as a fist slammed into his face, causing him to lose his balance and fall to the ground, landing hard. Toshiro just stared, stunned. Naruto was winning. Sure, he'd known the other was decent at hand-to-hand, but this good? He'd obviously been holding back when they had fought, because the blonde was showing strength and agility and, damn, Toshiro was jealous. This guy, this idiot, was better at protecting Momo than he was. Ow, my pride, he pouted slightly. Naruto didn't stop in his assault, relentlessly knocking the man upside the head with a swift kick. And then another. And another. It was almost too easy. But as they say, when giants fall, they fall hard. He felt Momo walk around the scene and over to Toshiro, but he paid no attention, focusing solely on maiming the man who had dared to come in and try to harm them. The guy deserved it. Are you all right, Hitsugaya-kun? Momo asked worriedly, tentatively touching the wound on Toshiro's head. I'm fine. I think you should be more worried about him. He motioned in Naruto's direction. And I'm not talking about Naruto. The man grunted as he finally lost consciousness, blood leaking from the corner of his mouth and his eyes rolling back in their sockets. He barely understood what had just happened as he fell into oblivion. Toshiro stared, taken aback, as Naruto continued to kick the man. He's that powerful? Who was he when he was alive? He thought to himself as he watched the blonde. Maybe he really was the strongest ninja in his village, and maybe being stupid was all for show. Done with attacking the man, having lost interest now that he realized he was unconscious, Naruto turned to the other two watching him, grinning. Well, how's that? Good, right? Yeah, told you I was the top ninja in my village. He started walking forward to inspect Toshiro's wound himself, if only to laugh in the boy's face in the process, but something tripped him up and he ended up sprawled out on the floor once again. I wondered what happened to my apple, he said, voice a bit weak as he turned to see what he'd stumbled on. He must have dropped it without noticing when he had grabbed Momo's arm. Hey, look at all the pretty stars. His grin widened and he ended up fainting right there from exhaustion. Momo could only stare in incredulity at the boy passed out on the floor. What a guy. Toshiro blinked before sighing and covering his face with his hands. Or he's just an idiot. I can't believe I was praising him. He shook his head. What should we do with him, Hanamori? He asked as he headed toward the fallen blonde. And we should probably leave. This guy will wake up and not be happy. He bent down beside Naruto and pulled him up into a sitting position before grunting and hauling him to his feet. Can you get the food? It's time to leave. We can try and get into the 79th district. Might as well, since we can't hang around here anymore. Nodding, Momo collected the food and followed her friend out into the street. Are you sure, though? We could just camp somewhere for the night and try in the morning, she suggested lightly, the slumped form of Naruto concerning her just as much as Toshiro's head wound. She didn't want anything bad to happen to the two in their current states. Toshiro grunted again as he shifted his hold on Naruto. I guess you're right. No point in going in there like this, we'll be asking to be hurt. He looked around the abandoned area. We need to find a new shelter then. We should head back towards the border to District 81. No one lives down there, it'll be safer for us. He turned and started walking in another direction. His stomach growled loudly, but he ignored it as he continued to drag Naruto. He's kind of heavy, he thought to himself with a sigh. This wasn't how he had planned on spending his day. Walking alongside her friend, Momo beamed, happy to have Toshiro as a companion. He always seemed to make the most logical choices, and he even protected her from the dangers that the lower districts had to offer. It would be an hour and a half walk to the border, she remembered, glancing over at Toshiro with a hint of worry. Would he be able to carry Naruto that far for so long? She didn't know, but it wasn't like they had any other choice besides dumping the blonde somewhere and leaving him to his own devices. And she definitely wasn't about to do that. Toshiro shifted for a second time, trying to even out the blonde's weight. Wait. He stopped, hoping Momo would too. He put Naruto down and rolled his shoulders before bending down and maneuvering Naruto onto his back so that he was carrying him piggyback style. He stood with a small grunt and stumbled slightly under the other's weight. It wasn't that Naruto was huge or anything, but Toshiro was a little person. Okay, let's go. He tightened his hold on Naruto's legs as he stayed leaning forward so the blonde wouldn't slide off backwards. They got to the end of the street, and Toshiro almost walked into someone who just rounded the corner. Shit! He looked up, panicked. Black robes. Oh God, it was a Shinigami. He looked down at Toshiro, expressionless, as the younger boy looked up at him with wide eyes. He then looked at the unconscious Naruto before looking at Momo, too. He frowned and reached down. Alarmed, thinking the Shinigami was reaching for his sword, Toshiro stumbled backwards, almost losing his hold on Naruto. He started to fall when the Shinigami reached out and grabbed his arm, straightening him and keeping him on his feet as the other hand brought a device closer to the boy. Toshiro didn't move as the Shinigami inspected the piece of equipment in his hand. Momo, as well, was surprised at the sudden appearance of a Shinigami. He was much taller than any of them, looming over Toshiro and the unconscious blonde. When he pulled out some kind of device and pointed it at the two, she was even more horrified. Hey! What are you doing? She demanded, steadying her voice so she at least didn't sound weak to the black-robed death god. She wasn't going to stand for having her friend's lives in jeopardy. Oh, relax? The Shinigami snapped. Is he screaming in agony yet? No. So calm down. He hit a button on the side and watched as the bar on the gadget rose. It did so slowly at first, and then began to raise much faster until it hit the top, and threatened to try and go higher. He looked at Toshiro before pulling it back and staring at it. Interesting, he turned it off and leaned in closer to hold it near Naruto. Don't move, he ordered the platinum-haired boy who still had Naruto in his grasp. Toshiro obeyed as the Shinigami turned the device back on. This time, it didn't start out slowly. The bar went to the top at rapid speed before the contraption broke from the overload. He brought the device back in front of himself with a frown before shrugging and tossing it over his shoulder, reaching into his robes and pulling out another, motioning for the dark-haired girl to come closer. The fact that Naruto had broken his other device didn't seem to bother him. In fact, he was actually quite pleased. The first boy's results were perfect, and the others were simply amazing. He wondered about the girl. Shyly, Momo walked forward, not fully understanding the situation. What was that thing? And why had the Shinigami so casually discarded the first? She looked at Toshiro curiously, thinking he might know the answer. He seemed fine, at least, so it couldn't be anything harmful, could it? The Shinigami brought the device closer to her and watched the bar rise. It didn't even go halfway, so she was nowhere near as impressive as the other two, but that was to be expected. People like Toshiro and Naruto were pretty rare. I should have known. You always travel in packs. He put the gadget away as he put his hands on his hips and stared at the three of them. You guys residents of this district? You could say that, Toshiro replied uneasily. If he found out Hinamori and himself were from District 87, not only would they be separated from Naruto, but the months they'd spent trying to move up would have been for nothing. I'm sure you know you have high spiritual energy. Get hungry often? Always. Toshiro shifted Naruto on his back. Want me to take him? He took a step forward and Toshiro moved back. I'm fine. The boy glared. Hey, don't be a brat, the Shinigami snapped before putting his hand on Toshiro's head. I'm just being nice. He messed up the kid's hair before pulling away, leaving Toshiro to blink, confused. Who are you? Momo stepped closer to Toshiro, wary of the Shinigami just as much as her friend was. Everything they had worked so hard to achieve would mean nothing if this man found out where they really came from and ordered them back. It would all fall apart. The behavior of the Shinigami was strange, however. She had never seen one show kindness before. They were enforcers who kept the world balanced. In her mind, they were warriors, not gentle or sympathetic in any way. What do you want? She added as an afterthought, tensing as she stood by Toshiro's side. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Calm down, you're acting like I'm a monster. He grinned and brought his hands up. Boo. He laughed heartily afterward, shaking his head. I'm Shiba Kaien, 5th seat in the 13th division. I was just doing rounds, and I noticed there was high spiritual energy around here. Did you know that only good Shinigami have high spiritual energy? What's your point? No interruptions. Kaien punched Toshiro in the arm, causing him to wince. My point is that you guys could become good Shinigami. He smirked. If Momo didn't feel an ounce of dignity, her jaw would have dropped in utter disbelief. Here was this man, spouting things like you guys could become good Shinigami. What does he mean by it? She wondered. Or is he just humoring us? She glanced at Toshiro, unsure of herself. A groan could be heard from the slumped form of Naruto, and Momo was a bit surprised he had enough strength to wake up now. What's going on? He mumbled, his voice slightly muffled against Toshiro's yukata. Oh good. You awake, fatso? Toshiro asked, his eyes still on Kaien, who just stared back at them. He didn't trust the Shinigami, but he couldn't very well run away with Naruto on his back. He put him down slowly, muttering out of the corner of his mouth, "We're going to run." Kaien kicked out with his leg, hitting Toshiro in the face and causing him to cry out as he clutched at his nose, bent forward and holding it tightly. No whispering. I can hear you anyway. And who's going to be running with that empty belly of yours? He pulled his Zanpakuto out and nudged Toshiro's stomach with the sheathed edge. Relax, this is my job, I'm not trying to con you or anything. He grinned. Naruto stared at the darkly clad man like he was a strange being from a far-off world. Hell, to him, he was a strange being from a far-off world. Who the hell are you, buddy? And why did you kick him? Not that he doesn't deserve a good kick every once in a while, his stomach growled. And speaking of empty stomachs. He looked sheepishly over at Momo. Can I have that apple now, Momo-chan? Quiet. The Shinigami leapt over Toshiro and his foot slammed into Naruto's face, the blonde toppling over and landing on his ass. I liked you better unconscious. He turned to Momo. Well, what do you say? You seem to be the only civilized person here, so how about it? Are you going to come with me to the Shinigami school, or not? He crossed his arms and waited. Hold on. Toshiro rebutted, his voice coming out funny because of his injured nose. You can't just expect us to believe you'd pick a bunch of kids up off the street in the 80th district and put them in the Shinigami Academy. Actually, I'm picking up 2 District 87 kids. Kaien grinned impishly at Toshiro, who paled. We've been following your movements for a while now. I knew you were from 87, but it wasn't until I got closer that I realized you had high spiritual energy. You're just lucky, or else you'd be back in 87 faster than you can blink. Bastard, Toshiro growled. Naruto rubbed his sore cheek, having turned his head just in time to make sure he wasn't kicked directly in the face, like Toshiro. His nose was still intact and thankfully not broken. He rather doubted the other boy had that small justice. The whole situation was confusing him, so he had pretty much tuned the man's voice out. However, he wasn't just going to sit on the ground and wait patiently for an explanation. You can't just go around kicking random people. He shouted right off the bat as he stood up. Sighing, Momo stopped Naruto with a hand on his arm. Let's just consider his offer, all right? Why? Naruto replied with irritation. He's an even worse bastard than Hitsugaya probably. But if we don't, we'll be separated, she explained softly, sadness evident in her tone. Toshiro discounted the bastard comment aimed at him, gritting his teeth angrily. Kaien just grinned at them. Obviously, the Shinigami had them and he knew it, which pissed the boy off. The bastard was being so damn smug. And by the way, brat, Kaien said to Naruto before bopping him painfully on the head with the hilt of his sword. I can kick whoever I want when I want. It's good practice. He grinned as he brought his sword back, resting it over his shoulder as he inspected them. We can't go to this school, we have no money, Toshiro snapped. It's paid for. Well, the basic things anyway. And wouldn't you like to wear real clothes instead of that yukata? Naruto eagerly nodded. Yeah. White really doesn't look good on me, he trailed off, most of the conversation going right over his head. He didn't understand half of what was going on, or what was going to happen. He was the type to just go with the flow given the circumstances he found himself in. Momo was being exceptionally quiet though. He glanced at her with interest, but she seemed to be seriously considering the situation instead of jumping in blindly like him. Just like Toshiro, she knew the man had the three of them on a technicality, but was it the right choice? I guess we can go, Hitsugaya-kun, what do you think? She asked the last part a bit softer than the rest, disregarding the Shinigami for the moment. Why are you asking him? Kaien put his hand on Momo's head and rocked it slightly from side to side. You're a big girl, he's just a twerp. Toshiro's eye twitched and he silently fumed, not daring to say anything out loud in case he got punched or kicked again. The guy certainly was violent, but he wasn't violent in a mean way. It was hard to explain, but this particular Shinigami he was actually pretty kind compared to all the others. Are you telling me that lodging, books, clothes, and classes are all paid for? Yup. Kaien turned and smiled, actually smiled, at Toshiro. Usually, you'd have to pay for certain things, but because you and your friend there, he motioned Naruto, have spiritual power off the charts, you'll probably be provided for. As for you, he looked at Momo with a smile as she bashfully tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I guess I can help you out for a little bit, but not forever. And you'll have to pay me back eventually. He patted her head before pulling away. So, what do you say? Toshiro looked at Momo as he frowned, thinking it over. Staying off the streets for free? Learning how to be a Shinigami? It sounded almost surreal. Momo blushed and looked down. It sounded too good to be true. This man was willing to pay her way into Shinigami school. Granted, she would have to pay him back, but she would have insisted on that anyway. Having a secure place to stay, learning to fight so she wasn't a burden, it all was too idealistic to imagine. And here was this man saying he would give it all to them. I accept. She kept her head down so she didn't have to see Toshiro's expression. If she's going, then so am I, agreed Toshiro. He wasn't leaving Momo by herself. They'd been together some time now, and he wasn't willing to lose her. But can we leave him behind? He gestured to Naruto. He was joking, of course, well, for the most part. Kaien laughed, messing up Toshiro's spiky hair. You're a funny one. He's already said yes, it's too late. What are your names? Toshiro. Hitsugaya Toshiro. Hitsugaya, huh? Got a nice ring to it for a Shinigami. He grinned as he rubbed his nose before looking at Momo and Naruto. What about you two? Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. And what are you talking about, Hitsugaya? If anyone should be left behind, it's you. He stuck his tongue out childishly at Toshiro. Momo laughed a little before introducing herself. Hinamori Momo. And I'm definitely the more civilized one. She smiled for the first time in the Shinigami's presence. I can tell. Oi brat, shut up. He hit Naruto across the head again. Seeing as how you were unconscious when I met you, and Hitsugaya here was carrying you, I failed to see how you're any better than him. Of course, Kaien knew Naruto was better, spiritually at least, but he wasn't going to inform him of that fact. He would just let the blonde stew in knowing that a Shinigami had made fun of him. Toshiro grinned at Naruto, clearly showing the blonde that he had made a fool of himself. Kaien noticed the look and smiled deviously in his mind as he steeled his expression and tapped his chin. Well, if you really don't want this Naruto to come with us, I guess we can leave him here. Toshiro's grin disappeared as he turned to Kaien, startled. Eh? Why? Well, he was unconscious with you carrying him. He can't be that great. I was just kidding, Toshiro insisted. If Naruto got left behind because of his joke, he would feel terrible. Naruto blinked, and then blinked again. Was Toshiro sticking up for him now? Damn, that brat's confusing. Makes my head hurt. He rubbed his temples and turned to Momo. I believe I've just been insulted and now I'm about to get disqualified for this Shinigami thing and I don't even know the half of it. Where's the justice in that? You're funny, Naruto-kun. Not as serious as Hitsugaya-kun, but it's not bad. She smiled at him and he grinned in return before they turned back to watch Toshiro argue with the Shinigami. Well, I might overlook this and let him in, but only under one condition. He smiled at Toshiro. Of course, what is it? Toshiro demanded. Kaien's hand came crashing down again, and Toshiro clenched his eyes shut as he waited for the hand to smash into his head. Instead, it just fell lightly on top of his messy white hair. He opened his eyes, confused, and saw Kaien bending down slightly so they were at eye level. He was smiling again. Keep that loyalty to your friends. He stood straight again, removing his hand. And don't take things so seriously. Life is too short to give up on a bunch of laughs. He turned and started walking, motioning for them to follow. Toshiro felt a blush creep onto his face before he turned to Naruto and glared. "We're not friends," he informed. "I just felt guilty." He nodded, as if to convince himself, too, and then followed Kaien. "Come on, Hinamori." Momo brought a hand to her mouth, hiding a smile. It appeared Naruto was worming his way into both their hearts. There was just something about the blonde. She couldn't put her finger on it, but she liked him. "Sure, Hitsugai-kun." She followed after her first real friend, her smile still tugging at her lips. "I never said we were either, Hitsu-team." Naruto smirked, proud of his newfound nickname for the brat. Author's notes. Avril, well, here you have it. Another joint project between me and Sarge. This one, however, is more of the bleach variety. We're rather proud of this one. Just wait until some of the other characters get introduced. Not that we're mentioning any names. You'll just have to wait and see, dear readers, wait and see. And since this is another RP-style joint FIC, we have another character list for you guys. We're putting them at the end this time, so we don't spoil anything, for your convenience and viewing pleasure. Enjoy. Anything to add, Sarge? Sarge, other than the fact that this was bloody hilarious and insanely fun to write, not really. We hope y'all enjoy this, and even if it seems like it's a little slow sometimes, bear with it, it'll be worth it, tongue sticking out, and some of our characters are a little insane, but y'all know that's how I like 'em, haha. Stick around for more, and hopefully, you won't be disappointed. Toshiro tugged at the sleeve of his GI, frowning at it, annoyed. He didn't like his new uniform at all, and for God's sake, the pants were blue. And even worse, he was rooming with Naruto. They weren't friends. Why wouldn't anyone believe him? He sighed, defeated. He supposed he could try not to be such a bastard to him. But the other kept spouting some nonsense about being Hokage. Toshiro didn't even know what that was, and he was pretty sure he couldn't become it in Soul Society. Though I guess I have to admit that he's pretty entertaining, he thought with a snicker. Naruto had managed to injure himself 20 times since their arrival, and that was before they had even made it to the dorms. Now that it was their first day on campus, he was actually almost worried. Naruto came out of the adjoining bathroom, disappointed. "These clothes are too clingy. And I hate the colors," he pouted, walking over to the standing mirror set up in the room since there hadn't been one in the bathroom, which was strange, considering that was where mirrors were supposed to be. "What are you staring at, Hitsu-team? Did I put something on wrong?" He turned his head in the direction of his roommate, glaring. Before Toshiro could comment, Naruto turned back around to check out his uniform in the mirror, frowning as he looked over his clothes before glancing at his face to make sure he had wiped off all the toothpaste around his lips. Who knew that in the afterlife you could still get bad breath? He shrugged and scratched at his cheek. At first, it didn't hit him, but something looked different. His eyes widened in sudden understanding. What the hell? Where'd my whisker marks go? He felt his cheeks, making sure it wasn't some kind of illusion. The fuck? How's this possible? I thought they were permanent scars. He blinked and shouted a couple more cuss words at the mirror before swerving to face Toshiro, finally finished. "And you, answer my question. What's wrong with my appearance?" Dutifully ignoring the earlier outburst, Toshiro covered his mouth with one hand, trying, in vain, to stop from bursting out laughing, because it would be rude. He was trying to be nicer. He covered his mouth again, holding back a laugh. "Your GI is on backwards, which would explain the discomfort." He turned away and laughed silently, not even a squeak emitting from his mouth as his shoulders shook. He took a few deep breaths before turning back to Naruto, his face completely steeled. "And the color's not that bad. It could be worse. Our outfits could have been green or orange. That would have been hideous." "Oh, they don't come in those colors?" Naruto asked, even more dejected as he walked over to the bathroom to change again. "I mean, orange. I look best in orange." He gave off the air of a wounded puppy. "What is wrong with this place? It's all black this and white that. Don't they have some other colors? And don't you dare say blue. That's as bad as black." He huffed and stalked back into the bathroom to fix his GI. "Orange would be hideous," Toshiro repeated as he crossed his arms. "And would you hurry up? We need to eat before heading to our first class, and since you knocked yourself out yesterday for the second time, I had to stay here and watch you instead of going off to look for my classes." Kaien had told them he would be around to help them and that the classes were easy to find, but they were entering in the middle of the year. Toshiro was embarrassed enough without being late to add to that. He wondered how Momo was doing, rubbing his arm worriedly as he thought of her over in the girls' dorms. They wouldn't even be seeing her in classes since they'd been put under different schedules. Of course, he was stuck with Mr. Clumsy, but he was grateful anyway. If he'd been completely alone, he would have felt even more worried and embarrassed. At least with Naruto around making a fool of himself, he would be fine. Hey! I didn't ask that stupid boulder thing to get in my way and trip me up. And then that stupid iron pen just happened to be lying around. The blonde grumbled right back, finally finished writing his GI and exiting the bathroom, looking at least halfway presentable this time. More so than the first time, anyway. How's this? It's not as tight as before, thank God. He grumbled some more and grabbed the school books Kyan had provided for them all individually. So, what's first, Hitsuteam? He regretted that his schedule matched perfectly with Toshiro's, but he was grateful that he wouldn't be alone at the very least. Always being alone had the tendency to make someone appreciate when there were other people around to annoy, to talk to. The list was endless. Naruto grinned and headed for the door. Come on, we don't want to be late. Toshiro rolled his eyes as he grabbed his own books. We have Kido training first, which is going to be somewhat embarrassing since we've never learned anything and everyone else will have spent months practicing already. They exited the room and the two of them walked down the corridor, heading for the cafeteria. Honestly, Toshiro was so hungry that he thought he was going to die for a second time. He couldn't wait to get some food into his bottomless pit of a stomach. That's supposed to be somewhere outside. I was thinking maybe we could study from the books while we ate. I did a bit of studying last night while you were unconscious, and it seems pretty complicated, but I think I've got the basics down. I can do a few things, at least. He shrugged as he pushed through the doors that led to the cafeteria. Oh, so that's what you were up to. I was wondering why you kept muttering to yourself. He smirked. What you call unconscious was really just me sleeping off the pain. A ninja doesn't let his guard down for anything. He didn't have time to dodge Toshiro's whack to the side of his head. Ow, that hurt, Hitsuteam. I didn't do anything to you. They maneuvered through the crowd of students and made their way to the breakfast line. What's with all these people? They all want to be Shinigami Watsits? According to Kyan, only about 10% of the people who try out as Shinigami actually make it. Well, make it to the higher-ups, anyway. He said that 60% of the people who train here become Shinigami, but only 10% of everyone recruited will become a seated Shinigami, or vice captain. And only 1% will become a captain. He turned to Naruto with a sigh. Don't you ever listen? You say you heard me muttering while you were sleeping off the pain, yet you can't listen to people when you're fully conscious? That's almost... He was rudely interrupted by the other shrieking with glee. He covered his ears, wincing. Ramen! The heavenly joy of ramen! I knew this was heaven! Naruto rushed immediately to grab a bowl of ramen from the cafeteria lady, and then rushed to find an open seat nearby, leaving Toshiro in the proverbial dust. The other boy, for his part, was quite glad the psychotic blonde was gone. Everyone was staring at him, and he blushed slightly, knowing it was because he was associated with Naruto. He coughed a bit, and made his way towards the oatmeal, grabbing himself a bowl before heading off to Naruto, who was happily eating his bowl of ramen. You're embarrassing, you know that? He muttered as he tried to hide his face from everyone around them. It wouldn't matter since his hair stood out, as did Naruto's, but he could always try. How about being more normal? He grumbled as he took a bite of his oatmeal. Who eats ramen at 7 in the morning anyway? Well, me for one. And he shrugged. I suppose I could count the number of people on one hand, now that you put it that way. He went back to slurping up his ramen, having only paused momentarily to answer the boy. Not much could distract him from his ramen, now, which had his perfectly devoted attention as he finished it up. He noticed, with a grin, that Toshiro was a slow eater. The platinum-haired boy twirled his spoon in his oatmeal. He was starving, but he was so nervous he could barely even concentrate on his food. He kept going over the things he'd learned the day before, hoping to at least get something right. But like he kept reminding himself, being friends with an idiot would make him look good. He would have to help Naruto later, once he got the hang of things. After all, he and the blonde were sort of maybe kind of friends. He didn't want people making fun of Naruto just because he couldn't do something. After all, looking at him, no one would believe he'd arrived in Soul Society the day before. It was insane. Taking one final bite of his oatmeal and leaving more than half remaining, Toshiro stood. Come on, let's head to our Kido lesson. Naruto looked at the boy as if he were crazy. What, that's all you're going to eat? Isn't that going to affect you later? He wouldn't admit he felt a hint of concern. He wasn't friends with the white-haired bastard, he reminded himself, though part of him disagreed. He usually ignored that part, anyway. When Toshiro made no move to sit back down and finish his breakfast, Naruto stood with a sigh. Fine, have it your way, brat. Where's this Kido lesson at, anyhow? I know you said something about it being outside. Oh, so you do listen. Toshiro grinned as they headed for the doors. Yeah, it's outside. Kyan said it was in the 4th courtyard, so I'm assuming the one closest to the dorms is the 1st. We'll just have to walk across it and count until we hit the 4th. Sound like a plan to you, dumbass? He smirked at the blonde, shifting his books from one hand to another. I'm kind of worried about letting someone like you practice with spirit energy, though, he admitted with a chuckle. Hey, Naruto said, scowling. I'm not that bad. He altered the angle of his own books and marched out of the cafeteria ahead of Toshiro. Just for that remark, I'll show you I'm better than you in every single way. Bastard, he put in as an addition. I highly doubt that, Toshiro stated dryly as they headed toward the first courtyard, only to stop as he saw two older men standing in the center. They wore the black Shinigami robes everyone else did, but they also had white cloaks over top, showing they were captains. No! One of them whined like a child, crossing his arms. I want him. I saw him first. Why do you always get everyone I want? It's not fair. Do you believe you are worthy to have such an obviously intelligent fellow on your team? Are you sure you're capable of keeping him entertained? You can barely use witty banter, even when you try, the other Shinigami captain objected, blowing a tuft of hair out of his eyes. Kurosaki, you cease to amuse me. Naruto watched on, amused nonetheless. What's with them? Are they teachers or something? Embarrassingly enough, they're captains, Toshiro replied as he listened. It sounded like they were arguing over a person, but for what purpose? Well, actually, Toshiro had an idea, but he wouldn't dare say it aloud. Naruto would probably scream it out in shock. I think you're speaking of yourself, Urahara. He would be much happier with me. Why, I could offer him everything. He would never get bored, and he would enjoy his time with me so much he would forget you even exist. He stuck out his tongue before crossing his arms and turning away. Then again, I could also just use his best friend. Both would rather join me than you. We'd make the best threesome ever. Toshiro actually stiffened. Oh God, what have I gotten myself into? Naruto burst out laughing. Are you kidding me? Did that captain guy just say best threesome ever? Ha, if only my old sensei was around. He sure would get a kick out of that pervert and his warped mind. So anyway, what's with them? Who are they fighting over and why? He inquired curiously of Toshiro, not noticing the rigid posture of the other boy. The second captain was the first to notice they were being watched by a pair of onlookers. Oh, Kurosaki, thanks for shouting that out loud for us. But maybe a little louder next time, I don't think they heard you. He jerked a thumb at the two boys who were standing at the courtyard entrance. Trainees! Captain Kurosaki Ishin thrust a fist into the air before bolting toward the two boys. Toshiro didn't know whether to run or hope the crazy captain accidentally flew past him. He decided to just stay where he was, and once the captains had finally reached them, the crazy one kicked them both in the face. Toshiro slammed into the wall nearest the entrance, and clutched his head painfully when he slid down it, wondering if it was standard for all Shinigami to kick and punch people, just for the hell of it. Ha, you two have to be faster than that. Ishin laughed heartily with his hands on his hips, as he watched the two boys groan. Hey Urahara, they seem a little more accurate for your lazy team. PFT lazy? We do more work than you do in a year, Kurosaki. Need I remind you, I'm the president of a certain something. He grinned slyly. I think they belong on your team. They seem more like the jump right in and get myself killed kind, anyway. He offered the two a hand up. Please forgive his rude behavior. How long have you two been trainees? A few months? Naruto continued to rub his sore nose as he accepted the hand. About 2 hours, starting today. Toshiro didn't even have a chance to hit him on the head this time since he dodged the blow, hyper-aware of his surrounds after that good morning kick he had just received. I'm really sorry if this comes off as impolite, but please leave me out of your fetishes. Toshiro coughed slightly. You can't have him. He motioned to Naruto. I, on the other hand, am not interested. He hoped he wouldn't get in trouble for this, but he had just started. He didn't need the captains to think he would just bend over and kiss someone's feet to get ahead. No, he was going to work his own way up in the ranks, except not to captain. If being a captain meant being like them, then no thanks. 2 hours? Ishin hollered, as if everything Toshiro had said had fallen on deaf ears. The white-haired boy himself just sighed. He was used to being ignored. Wow, you must be really, really new. That's great. I can corrupt you right off the bat. Amazing. He did a little dance, Toshiro getting very concerned. Urahara Kisuke sked at his fellow captain. Please ignore his craziness. And so you, the one with that sharp tongue, what's your name? Not many fledglings have the gall to stand up to their superiors. I like your spunk. He stepped to the side to avoid Ishin's dance going into overtime. He didn't particularly care to be slapped by a wild hand or loose foot. Naruto, too, stepped closer to Toshiro out of fear for his safety, slightly worried about the sanity of his so-called superiors. It really made him wonder what kind of society he had stumbled upon exactly. Hitsugai Toshiro, the boy replied to the normal captain, or, Normal between those two, anyway, since neither seemed too normal. Shiba Kyan is the one who brought us here. He said we had high spiritual energy. For real? Toshiro jerked back as Ishin's face suddenly appeared in front of his. Wow, if you got complimented by Kyan, that must mean you guys are good. Hey, hey! Toshiro hollered, pointing his finger at Ishin. We didn't do anything with Kyan. He just said we had high spiritual power, that's it. You're a strange one, kid. Ishin rubbed the back of his neck. Huh, Urahara? Something's not right with this one. He grinned at Toshiro. The boy bit back a comment about Ishin's dancing. Did you say something, Kurosaki? I was just daydreaming about a new invention. Kisuke trailed off, eyes wandering to Toshiro. So, you say you're powerful? Do you boys want to test that out? Just for kicks? Hey, Hitsuteam, aren't we going to be late? Naruto whispered lightly, not sure if they were allowed to leave of their own free will if they were assaulted by captains, for lack of a better word. Naruto's right, we should probably be going, insisted Toshiro before glaring. And I never said we were powerful, that's what Kyan said. I wouldn't just sprout that out to a captain, I'm not that prideful. He shot a glare at Naruto, warning him in advance not to say anything regarding his pride. Oh, if you're fighting with us, I don't think the teacher will mind. Here, we'll even send a hell butterfly for ya. Ishin let one of them land on his finger before speaking quietly to it, and watching it fly away with a smirk. Perfect. Now we're all set. He clapped his hands. Now I want to fight Whitey-chan. Whitey-chan? Toshiro glowered. What are you talking about, Kurosaki-kun? Said Urahara, drawing out the name in a sing-song type of way. Whitey-chan should be my sparring partner. You can have Sunshine-kun. He nodded in Naruto's direction, who was pouting dejectedly at the injustice, not to mention the new nickname he had been dubbed with. Plus, I called him long before you called him. I called him in my mind. So there. Naruto blinked and glanced at Toshiro, confused and lonely. How come no one wants me? You're the bastard, not me. Toshiro could only sigh, ignoring Naruto's comment. This wasn't looking good. If he wanted a serious fight, he would have to pick the one called Urahara, but that particular captain might be too tough on him. On the other hand, even though the other Kurosaki seemed like a dumbass, much like his good friend Naruto, they'd be a perfect team. His insanity might cause him to pull low blows that he might not be able to compare to. We have no weapons, stated Toshiro, trying to get out of it. Here. He caught the sheathed sword that was sent flying at him, wondering where Ishin had gotten it from since he still had his own sword by his side. Urahara, not one to be outdone by his companion, brought out a spare sword as well and tossed it to Naruto. So, kid, what's your name? Why do you want to know? Naruto asked with raised eyebrows, catching the sword easily just like his companion. I thought you were just going to call me Sun-kun or whatever. That's your official name from now on, I want to know your real one, Urahara clarified, smirking. Baka, Toshiro hissed out of the corner of his mouth. They're captains. As immature as they are, give them your name. I gave them mine. He huffed, crossing his arms. Kaya! Whitey-chan is so cute. Ishin flew forward, hugging Toshiro tightly. The platinum-haired boy's eyes widened as his arms flailed. Let me go! He started hitting Ishin's back with the sheathed sword, threatening to take it out and stab the man if he didn't let go. Mouse so mean, Whitey-chan. Ishin let him go as requested, standing beside Urahara again. So, Urahara Taishu, you taking Sunshine-kun so I can have Whitey-chan? He grinned. Urahara only gave the man a look. Like hell I would do something that stupid. I'll be taking Whitey-chan. You don't know how to deal with such people, as proven by your touchy-feely moment just now. You can have Sunshine-kun. He brandished open his cloak and took out what at first glance seemed to be a cane. Don't make me take her out and stab you, Kurosaki-kun. He's going to take what out where to whom? Naruto shook his head. Well, if it matters that much, Hitsuteam, I guess I'll tell them my damn name. And they better remember it. He shouted the last part pointedly. Uzumaki Naruto. I'll be a captain for sure one day. Toshiro slapped his forehead at the blonde's outburst. He's going to get me killed one day, I know it, he thought with a sigh. He looked back at the two captains, deciding Kisuke was right. I'll fight with Urahara Taishu, if that's all right with you, he said to Kisuke directly. What? So mean. Ishin turned away from them, leaning forward against a pillar, as he pretended to cry. Toshiro just shook his head, paying no mind to the theatrics. Is that okay, Urahara Taishu? Yeah. I finally win. Urahara pointed his cane at Toshiro, smiling. Come, Whitey-chan, I'll show you to my fantastic, secret training ground. So, that means I'm stuck with that guy then? Naruto gestured to Isshin, frowning slightly. He's kind of wimpy looking, don't you think? What? Isshin spun around, his eyes ablaze as he clenched his hands into fists. You're going to eat those words of yours, Sunshine-kun. Great, anger the captains, why don't you? Toshiro rubbed his face tiredly. Can you please not kill him? I don't want a new roommate, he said as he headed toward Kasuke, intent on following him to his so-called secret training ground. Kisaki. Isshin pouted as he tugged on the other captain's sleeve. Can I come to the secret training ground with Sunshine-kun too? Fine. Urahara sighed. Just stop touching me. Now follow me, fellow captain and trainees. Oh, so I shouldn't have said that? Naruto tilted his head in confusion, scratching the back of his neck. Well, he does look like a wimp. Are you sure they're really captains, Hitsu? Only captains are allowed to wear those white cloaks over their robes, Toshiro whispered as he followed behind the captains with Naruto. And oh god, what have we gotten ourselves into? He clutched his head. Sure, he knew how to fight with a sword, but they were captains. As long as they didn't unsheath their swords, they would be fine. Sure, he and Naruto, mostly Naruto, would have a few bumps and bruises, but it was better than cuts and internal bleeding. Are we there yet? Isshin asked, then paused. On second thought, we should continue our discussion from earlier. He nodded to himself. I strongly believe that Tosen should be my vice captain. Toshiro almost tripped at those words. What? That's what you were arguing about. Of course, what did you think we were arguing about? Urahara tapped his cane against his chin. I suppose they could have thought we were talking about a lover. Or maybe about something petty like that. Really, I'm not sure. What did you think we were talking about, Whitey-chan? Naruto stifled a laugh and turned his head away so he didn't have to see the probably horrified expression on Toshiro's face. He wouldn't be able to hold in his laughter if he looked. And nothing, he said, a blush creeping onto his cheeks as he let his gaze fall anywhere but on the captains. I just didn't think it was about a vice captain, is all. He coughed slightly as he struggled to make his blush recede. He felt like an idiot. It's all right, Whitey-chan, it's not like we'll ever fight over you. Isshin laughed as he patted the boy's head. Toshiro's eyebrow twitched. You already did. Huh? We did? Isshin frowned, looking at Kasuke. We fought over him? Sorry about him, he has a very select, very limited memory. Urahara nodded as if that explained all. He quickened the pace to the training ground. Let's hurry it up, we're almost here. Well, almost. What's that supposed to mean? Ouch, quit slapping me, hits the team. That hurts. The blonde glared in front of him, not bothering to turn his head. At least I wasn't the one who thought that the captains were talking about. His mouth was suddenly covered. Shut up. Toshiro snapped, his hand still over Naruto's mouth. At least I think at all. He shot out defensively. Ah, you two are so cute, Isshin declared as he closed one eye and brought his hands up near his face before pretending to take a picture. I'm going to frame this one in my office. Toshiro blinked and then sighed, removing his hand from Naruto's mouth. Why do I bother? Everyone is crazy. He groaned, clutching the sword closer to him. He just wanted to get to Kida practice. Are we there yet? Naruto, in a careless moment, swung his sword backwards, having forgotten the thing was even in his hand. The thankfully sheathed sword connected instantly with Toshiro's stomach. Whoops, sorry there, Hitsu-team. Bet that didn't help the empty stomach, he said sheepishly. Ah. We're here, crooned Urahara happily, gesturing eagerly to the dank cave they now stood in front of. Tada! Toshiro had one hand on his stomach as he gasped for breath, tightening his hand on his own sword. Baka! He slammed the sheathed sword over Naruto's head, grinning in satisfaction as it cracked loudly. He was going to have to be more on guard with Naruto around. Then again, it had its advantages, what with him never being caught off guard ever in his life because of his crazy roommate. Ah, Whitey-chan, did he hurt you? Isshin asked. Come this way. He motioned in the opposite direction of Kasuke with one hand, while taking Toshiro's arm with the other. The training area is that way, he insisted with a glare, getting out of Isshin's grip quickly. I know what you're trying to do. I'm fighting the sane one. He was adamant in his decision, that was, until he took a look at the cave, frowning. This is it? It's kind of pathetic. I'm insulted, Whitey-chan. You haven't even seen the place. Come, ignorant ones, let me show you around. Kasuke grinned mischievously. After you, Whitey-chan. And Kurosaki-kun, you get to go last. Why? Isshin practically screeched at Urahara's comment about him going last. Naruto stuck to Toshiro's side, pouting as he massaged his now throbbing head. Is it just me, or are they even more insane than before? I don't think it's possible, but hey, I could be wrong, Toshiro whispered to Naruto, disregarding the captain's deafening shriek as he clung back to the blonde, looking around anxiously. What if the captains just wanted to eat their brains or something? He was glad he had a sword, to be honest. He could just cut Naruto down and run. No, that'd be mean, he sighed. I guess I could sacrifice myself for the moron. Besides, I know I can hold my own with a sword. Naruto doesn't even seem to know how to hold it. He ducked another accidental blow from the other boy. Suck it up, Ishinshin. Urahara rolled his eyes at the ball and captain and walked forward into the cave after the two boys, making sure that Isshin actually went last. Plus, with them ahead of us, they'll never see that trapdoor. He grinned. And then, they'll fall down into my training ground and simply be amazed. If they don't die, that is. It is a long way down, I suppose? Maybe that wasn't such a good idea, after all. Toshiro continued walking further into the cave with Naruto, wondering why the captains were lagging behind. As he opened his mouth to inquire, the ground under him disappeared and he screamed, grabbing onto Naruto, who was still on solid ground. Gah! Help me up! Help me up! He hollered as he held the blonde tighter, struggling to get his feet back under him. He grunted as he pulled himself back up with Naruto's help, panting once he was back on solid ground. That's so dangerous, he murmured. It didn't work. Isshin pouted then grinned. He snuck behind the two boys, who were looking down the large hole, and shoved them. Toshiro screamed again. Naruto clung onto Toshiro like his life depended on it. Well, in all actuality it did. At least he could use the other boy to soften the fall or something when they hit solid ground. Meanwhile, he would stick with screaming his lungs out. Cried Beneheim. Wasn't that Captain Urahara? And what exactly was that supposed to mean? They were going to die and he was telling someone to cry. Shouldn't he be more worried about the lawsuit soon to follow on their behalf? Surprisingly, their descent slowed down as they hit something that wasn't too soft or too hard and passed through it completely until they landed with a thud against the ground. Somewhere along the way, Naruto realized he had shut his eyes, not too thrilled on seeing the oncoming horror. Is it safe? He asked meekly, still burrowed against Toshiro. Yes, now get off. Toshiro didn't push Naruto away because his knees were shaking so badly he was worried that he would fall over. He just let the blonde hold him and pretended to be annoyed while he reminded his legs they were made of bone and not jelly. Whoa, now this is a secret training area. Ha! Isshin landed beside him and grabbed the two boys, putting them both in a headlock each. Gets them every time. Oh, wasn't that fun? I miss the good old days where Urahara could trick me with that trapdoor. He sighed, reminiscing and still pinning the both of them to his side. I can't breathe, Toshiro choked out. Need air, Naruto gasped, struggling as much as Toshiro in the crazy captain's grip. Kurosaki-kun, you're going to kill our sparring partners. Please stop before you choke them, Urahara tried to explain to his fellow comrade. Although, he guessed it went in one ear and out the other, just like any other time he had tried to explain something to Isshin. What are you talking about? They're fine, Isshin said, giving them both an extra squeeze for good measure, the two boys wheezing before he finally let them out of their headlocks. But I suppose we should get started. Whitey-chan. I'm fighting him. Toshiro coughed, holding his throat with one hand and motioning to Urahara with the other. Sharp. Sharp. I like you? Isshin laughed. All right, Sunshine-kun, let's go this way. He gestured for Naruto to follow him. Giving a forlorn look to Toshiro, as if asking for help, Naruto discontentedly proceeded after the captain. All right then, Whitey-chan. This way, instructed Urahara, taking the opposite side of the training grounds. He stopped a good distance away and waited for Toshiro to catch up. Well, I suppose you want to hear the rules for this fight, don't you? Toshiro nodded, pulling out the sword from its sheath and inspecting it as he spoke. That would be nice. Oh, can I listen? Isshin asked from across the way. We should probably have the same rules, otherwise Whitey-chan and Sunshine-kun will have different advantages, and that's not fair. Question. Toshiro sighed. Why did you ask for our names if you aren't going to use them? His eyebrow twitched in annoyance at being called Whitey-chan repeatedly. Kids these days. They never listen. I told Sunshine-kun this before. We wanted to know your real names, but we already gave you your official names in our minds from now on. The man grinned. And feel free to listen, Isshin, though you may not like what I say. It's completely up to you. First off, we, the captains, will not be using any weapons whatsoever. Urahara gestured to the cane that was back in the place where it had previously been when they had first met. Second, we'll only fight you with our left hand, giving you the advantage with your swords there, and the use of both hands. Feel free to try and beat us if you can. I think that's about all, unless you have something to add, Kurosaki-ai? Oh, so we only fight with our bare hands? Ishin put his sword away with a smile. I like it. But what if they're good? Can we pull our swords out then? I don't want my arm cut off or anything. He grinned as he rolled his shoulders, cracking his neck. So you're letting us fight you with real swords with sharp blades and you're not going to use anything? Toshiro asked, raising an eyebrow. Aren't you getting a little cocky? Cocky? No. Ishin laughed. We just know our strengths. He got into a fighting stance. Let's go, Sunshine-kun. Don't let Whitey-chan outdo you. Naruto looked down at the blade in his hand, tilting his head. Well, this would be my first time wielding one of these. Kakashi-sensei once tried to teach me how to use one, but I never really paid attention. He shrugged. But when you put it the way you just did, Kurosaki Taishu, I believe I'll just have to figure it out and best hitsu. He grinned, lifting the sheathed sword and dropping into his own fighting stance. Ready. Hasty as ever? Urahara shook his head as he looked at the energetic duo, and then redirected his gaze to Toshiro. Any time you're ready is good for me. I'll let you have the first shot. How's that sound? Don't give me a handicap. Toshiro bent his knees and held the sword by the hilt, keeping the blade parallel to the ground. He shifted his feet slowly, narrowing his eyes as he kept his gaze on his target. Then, he jumped forward, his blade slicing through the air perfectly, whistling heard due to the speed. Urahara was mildly surprised the boy knew how to wield the sword so well, especially since Asachi tended to weigh a bit more than the normal sword, though few people could really tell the difference. He watched the movements of the boy for a second longer before dodging any hit Toshiro could have made on his body. The offense was strong enough, he noticed, but the defense didn't look nearly as good. He decided to test his observations by swinging a left punch toward the boy from below the blade. Toshiro shifted the blade of his sword at the last second, the captain's fist connecting with the flat end of the blade. Toshiro then pushed off him, sliding back on the dirt ground as he narrowed his eyes further, calculating. He was weak on defense, he knew that, and after one swing, Urahara knew that too. Damn, he's good. He grit his teeth and tightened his hold on his sword. Then I'll have to ensure I make him believe I can't block something, when in reality it'll leave him open. Nodding to himself, the boy lunged back towards the captain, shifting his weight at the last moment, and swinging his blade hard towards the man's stomach, only to change angles at the last second and aim up for his left arm. The captain caught the change in angles a bit too late, able to at least avoid the worst of the cut just in time. The slight slash on his left arm, though, was testament to the fact he should have been quicker in realizing that tactic. The boy certainly was a tricky one, he'd have to watch for more feints from now on. Rolling his arm around to make sure the wound wouldn't affect his movement, he decided in that moment to go on the offense. If the kid wants to play, then play we shall. He struck out with his left fist again, sighing at the fact that he couldn't even use his legs to attack. At least that would have given him an advantage in this situation. Focusing all his strength into that one blow, he aimed directly for Toshiro's face. Toshiro gasped and just barely dodged the blow, feeling the fist graze the tip of his nose as he avoided it. He spun away and straightened again, gripping his sword tighter. Why don't we fight like men, using swords instead of fists? This whole underhand thing isn't my favorite way of fighting, he admitted. It may have been a bad idea to point out his weakness to Kisuke, but what else could he do? He was going to end up with a fist in the face eventually, anyway. You really want me to fight with my sword? Well, your advantage would go right down the drain, Urahara pointed out. At least with my bare hands you still stand a chance at winning. You'll have to really knock me around before I give you the privilege of fighting me with my sword. Now, are we going to stand around and talk, or are we going to fight? He rushed once more at the boy, fist raised. Toshiro dodged it and ducked under the captain's arm, swinging his sword again. It was dodged and he slid back to avoid a hit from the captain. With a growl, he jumped up, his sword raised high above his head as he aimed for the captain's head. He trusted the man to at least dodge it enough so he didn't cause him deadly harm. Urahara did move, but not in the predicted way. Instead, he made it so that the sword at any rate connected sharply with his right arm. He could stand a little pain, not mention it would keep him from giving in to the temptation to use his right hand, a small reminder, though that particular slash stung a bit more than the one before it. Nicely done, kid, but you shouldn't have given me so much time to dodge. I'm not aiming to kill. Toshiro flipped back to his feet, standing with his sword poised once again. I just want a little workout, and if I give you a few more stings, maybe you'll finally pull out that sword of yours. He smiled. I'm not saying I can best you, I just prefer to fight steel with steel. Makes me feel less pathetic, seeing as how you're still practically winning, despite the fact that you're only using your left arm to attack me. Toshiro's eyes drifted towards Naruto and Isshin, wondering how his blonde friend was doing. Panting, Naruto dodged to the right and rolled to avoid the consecutive attacks of Isshin. The man sure knew what he was doing on his feet, he could tell, but he still had the advantage of a blade over fists. He would have to make do and figure out a way to beat the captain head-on. He got immediately back onto his feet and ducked another blow to the head, bringing up his still-sheathed sword to directly block another incoming blow. Come, Sunshine-kun. Be more energetic. Isshin guffawed loudly as he bounced from one foot to the other, waiting for Naruto to regain his breath. You know, you would be doing much better if you unsheathed that sword. I can see you have potential, you just need to use it. That, or I'm reading you wrong. He frowned to himself, still jumping from foot to foot. And don't be afraid to use your fists and feet, they're good weapons too. He raised one index finger, making a point, and looking ridiculous still jogging on the spot. A Shinigami mustn't rely solely on their sword if there are other weapons at their disposal. Once you learn Kidu, that'll be something else for you to use. The hell? Naruto thought, still panting. Is this guy another guy or something? It was just too creepy. Maybe guy had already died and now was standing before him in another form. No, that couldn't be right. Isshin didn't have those trademark bushy eyebrows, but he did still have above-average brows all the same. Well, if he insists on giving me a stupid nickname, I won't be outdone. Or mini-brows, do I just pull this sword thing out of this sheath part? And then what do I do? He stared at the sword in his hand like it was a complicated puzzle that he just couldn't figure out. It doesn't look like much. Don't you have something else? Like kunai? Mini-brows? Kunai? Isshin blinked, and then guffawed loudly. You're so funny, Sunshine-kun. Of course you pulled the sword out of the sheath, it's what I just said. He walked over to Naruto and patted his head 2 or 3 times as he laughed. Need a hand? I can show you how to hold it too. Or you can just watch Whitey-chan. He motioned behind Naruto at Toshiro, the platinum-haired boy in the middle of an air attack. Glancing in the direction Isshin had motioned, Naruto narrowed his eyes as he saw, in his opinion, what looked like Toshiro winning over the alleged captain. I would back away from me now, he growled, determination reigning anew. He pulled the sword out of the sheath as instructed and waited until the captain actually had backed up. Sheath in one hand and sword in the other, he charged at Isshin with all he had. He wouldn't let that bastard Toshiro best him in a competition like this. It would just be too pitiful for words. Isshin's eyes widened as he dodged the blow Naruto attempted to connect with his sword, only to be hit in the face with the sheath. He stumbled back a bit and examined the boy's stance. He had completely changed from before, his eyes ablaze with determination and his fists clenched around his 2 weapons. Honestly, Isshin had never heard of someone using their sheath as a weapon too, but this kid was pulling it off decently. Is this really the same boy from just a minute ago? Isshin could feel the spiritual energy flowing off him in waves. It was incredible, seeing as how he shouldn't have been able to feel a rookie's spiritual energy at all. Just what exactly was this kid? Naruto relaxed his stance, reminding himself that the captain was only using his fists in battle, and only one, at that, and he had a lot more weapons at his disposal. Who was he kidding? He wasted no time on making another assault, brandishing the sword as another feint, and going for a strike with the sheath. Even if he managed to dodge any of them, Naruto made sure to add a kick in for good measure. Isshin dodged the first 2 blows and blocked the kick, jumping back a bit to gain some distance. Whoa ho ho. And here I thought Whitey-chan would be giving me a workout, but you're using your whole body as a weapon instead of just your sword. You're good, I like that. Once you're trained up a bit, you'll be lots of fun to spar with. I feel tempted to take out my sword right now. He grinned. Urahara, he called to his friend as he reached down and pulled his sword out of his belt, the sheath still containing the sharp blade. Sorry, but I'm going to have to break the rules. Sunshine-kun is a lot tougher than I thought. He held his blade with his left hand, still giving Naruto a decent handicap, and smirked. Time for me to get more serious. Naruto took a moment to regain his breath and then nodded. So finally the real fight begins, huh? Blocking an adequate blow to his side with an elbow, giving himself another scratch in the process, Urahara groaned when he heard his friend was going to break the rules. You never do what I tell you, Kurosaki. I knew it. Do whatever you want. He called out from his side of the room, a bit aggravated. He turned to watch Toshiro pant, the boy taking in shaky breaths. Looks like you need to get in better shape, or you'll be useless in hand-to-hand. Unlike your friend over there. I work better with weapons. Toshiro glared, chancing a look at Naruto. He had to admit, the blonde was good. Good enough for the damn captain to pull out his sword, he pouted. He was never going to hear the end of it. Naruto would rub it in his face all night all year. He had to change that. Closing his eyes, Toshiro stood still, his sword poised as he took slow, even breaths. His eyes then snapped open and he flickered, moving so fast he was barely visible to the naked eye. He learned this on the streets whilst escaping from people he had stolen food from. Once he was decently close to the captain, he swung his sword, aiming for the man's stomach. Urahara barely realized what had happened. He couldn't believe what he was seeing with his own eyes. He knows how to use Shunpa at this age. Who are these kids? His side gained a shallow cut due to his carelessness, only having time to shift enough to avoid a more deadly wound. Shouldn't have underestimated this kid. Hey, Whitey-chan, could I ask where you learned that particular trick? He rubbed at his side, wincing a little. Don't usually see kids who can move that fast. Contemplating on taking his own sword out, he waited for the answer, using the time to think out a better plan of action. If there was one, he would probably end up taking his sword out, at this rate. Growing up on the streets of District 87, you learn a few things. Toshiro straightened, his sword down at his side. I've done what I had to in order to survive. It wasn't easy, I'll admit to that, but I spent my time running from people and watching the Shinigami. It wasn't hard to pick up, it was actually mastering it that caused me problems. He crouched again and held his sword parallel to the floor, same as when they first started. I won't pretend I'm as fast as a captain, but I wonder if maybe this will give me an advantage. He flickered out of sight again. Sighing, Urahara realized it had come down to what he feared. He would have to violate his own rules. Well, it wouldn't be the first time, he admitted to himself. He quickly unsheathed what at first glance had appeared to be a cane, bringing out a gleaming sword to halt Toshiro's attack, which had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. You're pretty good for only learning that on the streets. I'm impressed. Toshiro smirked as he jumped back, admiring Kisuke's sword. Thank you? I like your sword. I'm glad I finally got you to pull it out. And you even removed it from its sheath too. Though, I have to admit, a cane is a smart place to hide it. You can play a cripple and then suddenly pull it out and take down all your opponents. Tricky. I like that. He smiled and got back into position. Now that we're down to swords, I have to ask, how serious are you going to take this? Urahara disappeared from sight with a smile etched on face. Let the games begin. Blades clashed down on each other, Naruto crisscrossing his sheath against his sword and using the added weight to push Isshin's blade away. He took a deep breath and dodged another blow, the captain not sparing him any time. He switched his weight from one foot to the other, spinning his right in the air, hoping to connect with the man's stomach. Isshin dodged the blow to his stomach, twirling his sword and bonking Naruto on the head with it before laughing. Tired already, Sunshine-kun? Or are you just going easy on me because you think I'm a weak old man? He twisted where he was, bringing his sheathed sword down to hit Naruto again, but the blonde blocked it, causing him to jump back to avoid another kick. TCH, this kid uses everything in his power. He doesn't rely on his sword. That's a good quality, but it's also an easy way to lose limbs if he's not careful. But I'll admit that he is good. Wonder if Urahara's getting as much of a workout. Isshin didn't want a chance looking over, or else Naruto would land a blow on him, and how embarrassing would that be? Naruto kicked out with a leg, panting slightly, swerving on the spot to bring about an uppercut. Take that. He thought again and again as he continued his assault, punching and ducking and kicking until his muscles started stiffening in protest. He ignored his body and brought up his sword to block the brunt of another blow from Isshin's sheathed sword. Damn, this guy is pretty good. Suppose Hitsuteam was telling the truth, wasn't he? Damn, kid, I might even have to go with my right hand soon. Isshin laughed, and then grunted, stumbling back from a blow that connected with his face. You're hard to keep up with. I guess I hit a nerve when I asked if you were tired. Do you have to punish someone you just met? He flipped his sword into his other hand, smirking as he blocked Naruto's next attack. Out of curiosity, did you want me to wait until you ran out of energy, or do you want me to just finish you off right now? You're wrong, Naruto hissed through clenched teeth. You're still underestimating me, old man. I don't appreciate that. He threw his sheath aside and gripped his sword in both of his hands, taking a deep breath and closing his eyes to regain himself. He snapped them back open immediately and dodged Isshin's newest attack, rolling on the ground with the sword pointed outward to nick at Isshin's calves as he went past the man. I won't let you win so easily. Ow! Isshin exclaimed, looking down. His robes were cut, and a thin line of blood was trickling down his legs. Well, I'll be damned. You actually got me. He grinned, watching as Naruto stood up once more. Now things will get more interesting. I knew there was something about you, Sunshine-kun. Isshin gripped his sword more securely with his right hand and charged, slamming it into Naruto's sword hard before swiveling around and slamming his fist into the side of the blonde's face. Belatedly, he realized that he may have been a little bit too hard on the blonde, but Isshin wasn't one to hold back. Naruto reeled back, head tilted downwards as he gasped, eyes wide. So the captain had foregone child's play, had he? Well, that was just fine with him. He would give the man what he was asking for then. A real fight. He straightened, steadied his stance, and glared. Oh? And what? Hitsugaya was automatically better than me. I don't take insults like that well. He charged, sword raised and cutting through the air with speed, aimed at Isshin. Blades clashed once more, but his tired muscles really couldn't withstand the force behind the captain's thrust, the man's blade inching ever closer. He narrowed his eyes. No, he thought, I won't give up like this. Not this time. Not ever again. Isshin grunted as he struggled to push the sheathed blade closer to Naruto. It was astounding. The boy was obviously tired, but he was making Isshin work to get the blade closer. Sure, Isshin was still winning, but it wasn't an easy win. Naruto was definitely holding his ground, and there was nothing Isshin could do about it. With a snort, the captain pushed away from Naruto, gaining some distance as he looked the panting blonde up and down. I never thought I'd see the day where I would do this with a newbie, he admitted as he brought his left hand to his sheath. Slowly, he pulled his sword from its sheath, throwing the protection to the ground before gripping his sword with both hands, the blade glinting in the light that shone in from the top of the area they were standing in. You're the first person below captain and vice captain level to ever see my blade, Sunshine-kun. He smirked. Or perhaps I should call you Naruto. Gaping, Naruto stared at the captain. Just stared. Had the man really just called him by his name? At last? Damn, it was a miracle, and no one else was around to hear it. Well, besides that Urahara guy and Hitsugaya, but they were engaged in battle themselves. He admired Isshin's blade for only a moment before rolling his shoulders and taking a long breath. This guy most certainly was a guy incarnate. No doubts about that. He just kept going, and going, and going. PFT, he'd show him. If beating Isshin meant he had beaten Guy by default somehow, it would definitely be worth it. If he had to, he would push his body to its limits to achieve absolute triumph. Why settle for less? With resolution in his heart, he charged again with the borrowed blade. Toshiro gripped his sword tighter, as he stayed impossibly still and listened intently. He shifted barely a second before a sword appeared out of thin air, the platinum-haired boy raising his sword to block the blow. He saved himself, mostly, but the tip of the captain's blade nicked his cheek and he flinched, jumping away and disappearing from in front of Kasuke, appearing behind him and swinging his sword down with a loud cry, trusting the captain to at least block it enough not to get injured. It would be a boost to Toshiro's ego if he injured the captain, but he could also get in trouble for it, and he wasn't looking to get kicked out. Urahara turned with speed and easily blocked the blade, raising an eyebrow. Why ever did you shout? Never give your opponent time to think, even when you believe you have the upper hand. He pushed their joined blades apart, stepping back. Let's try that again, shall we? By the way, if I were you, I'd be doing less talk and more action. A smirk, and then he was gone as if he had suddenly disappeared. The thing about a flash step, it only took a second or less to manipulate and enact. He was behind Toshiro before the boy even had the time to register the last part fully, holding his blade at a bare throat. Of course, Toshiro wasn't one to just sit idly. He knew that. The boy must have had something else up his sleeve. Toshiro smirked as he felt the cool blade against his throat. He didn't even bother turning his head as he spoke. I thought you said less talk and more action. That was rather silly of you, since that whole speech let me anticipate your move. The young boy had turned his sword around so that the point of the blade was now inches away from piercing into the older man's chest, right into his heart. The two were frozen with neither able to move, lest the other go through with the threat both blades had put forth. If either backed down even a little, it would be like admitting defeat, and Toshiro was much too proud for that. If he had to, he would let the older man slit his throat so long as he got to slam his own sword into the other's chest. So, now what? We call it a draw? Urahara couldn't believe his own words, no less that he had spoken them. But he really didn't want to hurt the boy, not when he had such potential. Really, to make a captain unsheath his blade in battle was a rather big feat for a rookie. Were these kids merely trainees? Was it possible? He would, of course, be keeping an eye on them. He shifted a little, easing up on his sword. It was a good fight, Toshiro. We must try it again sometime. As equals. Dropping his blade completely, he took a step backward to put distance between himself, and the blade pressed tauntingly to his chest. It was rather disconcerting how the boy had predicted that last move. It made him smile nonetheless as he gave his opponent a short bow. Isshin shifted his weight to block the blow from Naruto with his sword, his other hand moving swiftly to counter a punch to his stomach. This kid's got guts, I'll give him that. Not many people would attack a captain straight on. He leapt back a little and smirked, wondering if it would be a little too unfair to release his sword. He decided against it. This was only a kid, after all. Brushing sweaty, loose strands of hair out of his line of sight, Naruto swerved on the spot, bringing one leg up to kick out and using the momentum to swing his sword as a follow-up attack. He pulled it off fairly well, given it was his first time using such a tactic. Even if his attacks were blocked, he could still back off and try something else. This fight was far from over. Isshin watched Naruto pant, sweat dripping down the blonde's tan skin. That boy was going to kill himself if he didn't stop soon. Then again, that was pretty impressive to Isshin. A person who never gave up. They were rare nowadays. He was having more fun than he'd ever had with a rookie. Twirling his sword with one hand, Isshin flickered from Naruto's sight, appearing beside him and slamming his sword down, ensuring not to do so too hard, as Naruto was still a rookie. The blonde managed to block it though, which impressed Isshin more than he would admit, and the captain flickered away, standing a few feet behind Naruto. Now, he chanted an incantation in his head before holding out his hand, a low-level fire Kidu. Naruto winced a little, straightening and trying to understand what Isshin was preparing to do now with his outstretched hand. When a wave of fire shot out from the man's palm, he gasped slightly. Was that some kind of jutsu? He ducked it in the nick of time, the edges of his hair a little singed from the heat, but whole and not barbecued all the same. A feat in itself, really. He didn't want to picture what would have happened had he not dodged the flame. Crispy Naruto didn't sound appealing for some reason. What the hell? He shouted, one hand flying to his hair to feel the burnt edges and the other gripping his sword ever tighter. No fair, old man. Don't lose focus. Isshin hollered as he lunged, his sword slicing through the air. He stopped it barely inches away from Naruto's raised hand, and was surprised to see the boy had already begun pulling it back. Even if Isshin hadn't held back, Naruto would have cleared the blow with barely a scratch. Who the hell was this kid? Swinging around, he let his sword fly through the air, the blonde blocking it again. Every time Isshin swung his sword at him, Naruto managed to either block, dodge, or even counter it. Isshin didn't understand how someone could be so good when he was only a mere rookie. Granted, Isshin wasn't going at his full strength, but he was almost there. Thinking fast, Naruto caught the blade that descended upon him with his own, holding it there for just a moment before pretending to buckle under the strain. He had a plan, but would it work? He fainted, collapsing to the ground and panting harshly. It honestly did hurt to move, but he could still push himself a little further. Just a little. Back digging into the dirt floor, he shifted his blade just so and waited for what he knew would undoubtedly happen despite the completely obvious opening he had left the captain. But would Isshin take the bait? The captain knew it was a trick, but he also knew that he would be able to get in fast enough and defeat Naruto, just like he was meant to, what with being a captain and all. He used Shunput to get right in front of Naruto, his blade poised downward, aimed right at Naruto's chest. He frowned, almost confused, when he felt something just barely poking him in the stomach and, looking down, he saw Naruto's sword. No way! He was able to shift his sword at the last second, even though I moved in so fast? He looked back up into Naruto's face, trying to hide his own shock. But now, they had a problem. He knew neither of them would back down, so who was going to walk out of this as the victor? What are you waiting for? The boy taunted, voice sounding tired to his own ears. But I see your dilemma. You stab me and well, I'll stab you back. He attempted a smirk. Go right ahead and be my guest. I'm already dead, right? What harm can it do to die again just to beat you? It was a rather hollow statement, but he didn't want to lose, just as much as the captain wanted to keep his honor. It's a little different, kid. You may be dead, but here in Soul Society, you can still die. Isshin sighed, not moving an inch. It's complicated to explain, but trust me. You don't want me pushing my sword forward any more than I want you to push yours. I suppose I could back up, but that's not likely. I'm not one to just step back and admit defeat, and from what I can tell, neither are you. Isshin glanced up in search of Urahara, wondering if the other man could find some way to solve this. The sound of clapping filled the air, Urahara stepping closer to the scene between two unrelenting fighters. Doesn't this scene look like fun? However are you going to get out of this little pinch, Isshin? There was a definite smirk curving the other captain's lips, the taunt clear. He mock-gasped. Don't tell me Kurosaki Isshin will admit defeat. Good heavens, all of Soul Society would crumble in the wake of such a catastrophe. Say it isn't so. Naruto snorted at the drama that was Urahara, keeping his sword pointed upwards with an unwavering sort of determination. He would not lose. We might be here a while. Toshiro crossed his arms over his chest with a sigh. Naruto isn't one to give up either. I say we leave, grab some food, come back. No, they'd still be here. Wow, this is gonna be a really long day. He smirked slightly, ignoring the blood that was caking on the side of his face from the nick he'd received. Well, this isn't over, Because we don't have a winner yet, Ishin insisted. We can't just both walk away the winner. One of us has to lose, and I'm not backing down, even if it kills me. Well, we might die of old age waiting here. Toshiro yawned, and then stretched. Naruto turned his head slightly to glare at Toshiro. Hey, it's not like I'm calling this thing a stupid draw. He wanted a fight, and a fight he got. Now, if he'd be a good old man, he'd kindly resign before my arm falls off. He switched his gaze back up to Ishin. This really isn't getting us anywhere, is it? The blonde sighed, closing his eyes for a brief moment. He was still aware of his surroundings, however, so he could feel the bite of the blade nipping at his chest. It was rather uncomfortable. Couldn't a winner and a loser be chosen already? Urahara scratched his cheek, still looking upon the scene in amusement. But you're right, Whitey-chan, maybe we should go get some takeout and come back. At least we can have dinner and a show. He cocked his head to one side. Then again, what if we come back to find they both rammed their blades into each other at once? That kind of just defeats the purpose of getting takeout in the first place. Toshiro gave Kisuke a look. He had been joking about the takeout, for one thing, and for another, he didn't much like the idea of coming back to find Ishin had plunged his sword into Naruto's chest. The blonde was annoying, but not annoying enough to kill. I'm sure we can come to some sort of agreement. It's not like you're both just gonna stay like that, you're gonna get tired. Why don't we just call it a draw for now, so that Naruto and I can get to our kidda class, and then we can continue this another time. You think I'm going to admit defeat? Ishin sounded horrified, as if it were the worst idea he'd ever heard in his life. I'm a captain. I can't admit defeat to a rookie who's never even held a sword before. Well, Urahara-san and I tied, so you and Naruto can too, and then we can have rematches later. Toshiro shrugged. He really did want to get to their kidda class. He hoped the teacher wouldn't be too angry, but then again, at least Ishin had sent the person a message. Whatever, Naruto grumbled, nudging at Ishin's blade. Next time I face this sorry excuse for a captain, I'm going to defeat him with everything I have, no holds bar. You got that, old man? My, he's a feisty one, any Ishin-shin? Urahara quipped, twirling his resheathed sword/cane in one hand, dancing eyes fixed on the duo. They certainly gave us a run for our money, didn't they? I expected a warm-up, not a full-out exercise regime. So, 2 draws in one afternoon, how unexpected. Well, tut-tut. Away with you children. You best get to class before your teacher decides you won't be coming at all. An innocent smile replaced Urahara's ever-present, knowing smirk. Toshiro cocked an eyebrow at Kisuke as Ishin retreated with his sword away from Naruto, jumping back a few steps before resheathing it and walking to Kisuke's side. Toshiro went over to Naruto and held out his hand to help the blonde stand, looking around once the other was on his feet. How do we get out of here? Ishin motioned a ladder and Toshiro's eyes followed it up slowly before his heart fell. You've gotta be shitting me. That thing is so high, it'll take us hours to get to the top. There's a faster way, Ishin offered, Toshiro turning to look at him. The captain smirked. Climb quickly. Toshiro rolled his eyes and headed across the large expanse to the inbuilt ladder. Come on, dumbass, we need to get to class. Naruto nodded discontentedly, still unhappy at the default loss he had been dealt. Fine, but you better climb faster than a monkey, Hitsuteam. He followed the other boy to the ladder, looking up with a frown at the large distance they would have to cover. And we fell down that. Holy crap, it's a miracle we're even standing. Bye, Whitey-chan, Sunshine-kun, Urahara called after them merrily, waving goodbye. So first we had nicknames, as we thought we had names, and now we're back to nicknames. Toshiro grunted as he hauled himself up, beginning the long climb up the ladder. He was already tired from the workout, so having to climb this meant he was going to be downright exhausted when they reached the top. He hoped Kidda wasn't too hard. Naruto sighed, grasping the rings in his hands and already feeling the strain the fight had put on his muscles. And great, he had to climb an incredibly high ladder, too. If only the joy would stop before it killed him. He hauled himself up behind Toshiro, replying wearily, We're never going to get their respect outside of a real fight, you know that, right? Pity, too. Those nicknames are horrible, and mighty embarrassing. Toshiro grunted as he made his way to the top, pulling himself out and falling onto his back, breathing hard. Man, I'm never going down there again. He panted, waiting for Naruto to emerge as well. He wondered if the blonde had died or something. Me either, Naruto panted, falling to the ground on his stomach and just lying there as he emerged from the pit of hell, drained of all energy. Carry me. His plea was more of a whine than anything. Yeah, right. Toshiro laughed slightly. As if I can move any more than you. He grunted and got up to his feet, wincing at the pain shooting through his muscles. He held out his hand to help Naruto up again. Come on, we seriously need to get to class. That teacher is going to wonder what happened to us. Though maybe if we don't show up, they'll think we were killed and send someone after those two psychos. He laughed slightly. Seriously. They're crazy. Being a captain must be fun. Naruto trailed off on that note, shaking his head. Now I'm losing my mind. He groaned and tried to stand. I hate that man. He made me so sore I can't move, he whined once more, disregarding the hand Toshiro had offered him. He didn't need the other boy to keep helping him like he was a child who couldn't take care of himself. Ishin, after watching the two boys climb their way out, turned to Kisuke. They're interesting, those two. We should keep an eye on them. I mean, a draw with you and me on their first try. Even if we weren't going all out, that's still not something you see every day. Our vice captains can't even draw with us when we're at this level. Urahara merely said, gaze still seemingly far off. But wouldn't it be great if they rose through the ranks with all due haste? I would most certainly like to have one of them in my division. You know, we never did tell them about those two swords they have yet to return, nor our names and ranks. He smirked. I believe that calls for another accidental meeting, don't you? I thought we said they could keep those swords. Ishin scratched the back of his head. And even if you hadn't said anything, I'd have demanded another accidental meeting. Those two are too much fun to just leave alone. But let me guess, you get Whitey-chan and I get Sunshine-kun? Ishin smirked. Because now, I really don't mind who I get. Both have talent. I look forward to watching them grow. Urahara smirked. What a coincidence, I feel the same way. So, tomorrow we should have a little meeting with them. Maybe have I don't know lunch together? We're so nice inviting them out for lunch. That's true kindness, you know. Another smirk. Of course. Ishin smirked back. I expect great things from them. He turned away from Kisuke. Well, I best be off. I want to go find Tosen and ask him to be my vice captain. He grinned and flickered out of sight. Damn him, Urahara cursed and flickered out sight just as fast. He does know who he's messing with, doesn't he? I have tools, and I know how to use them. With that threat in mind, he went in search of Tosen before Ishin could find him and con him into becoming his vice captain. The nerve of that Kurosaki. Toshiro and Naruto finally made their way out of the cave, looking around to judge where they were exactly. The platinum-haired boy was glad he had a good sense of direction, otherwise he would have been worried that they were lost. Come on, it's this way. He led the way towards the dining hall, wanting to get back there since he only remembered how to get to Kita training from the dining hall. He suspected he and Naruto would get pulled away often by those two psychopaths, so he made a note to learn the layout of the school fairly fast. After a few minutes, they reached the dining hall and Toshiro started walking towards their Kita lesson with Naruto trailing after him. It's a good thing Kurosaki Taisha told our teacher we'd be late, or we would be in serious trouble. Yeah. Naruto slouched slightly as he walked, the pain no less bearable. Is there any way we can avoid the crazy ones? Because I don't want to be near them any more than absolutely necessary. He shivered. They're scary. And not in a good way. Glancing around, Naruto straightened as he noticed a group of other trainee-uniformed Shinigami in the next courtyard over. Ah, look, Toshiro. There they are. He smiled, relieved that the climb and the walk had not been in vain. Toshiro turned to look and grinned. Perfect. We can just head over now and let the teacher know we've made it. As he was about to run, he realized he still had the sword tucked in his pants. He didn't like it there, but for now, it would have to do. He wondered what the teacher would say about it, but for now, he didn't care. He was going to keep it for a while. He jogged slowly in the direction of the other students, stopping near the edge of the group as he looked around for the teacher, assuming he or she would be wearing black Shinigami robes. I don't see the teacher, he muttered to himself with a frown. A young man appeared before the students suddenly, handing out something to each in turn. He spotted the two standing off in the distance, and raised a questioning eyebrow. What do we have here? Can I help you, gentlemen? Naruto blanched and looked over at Toshiro. This was their teacher? Please God, tell me this isn't my teacher. He's a pretty boy for crying out loud. Hi. Sorry we're late, but Kurosaki Taisha said he sent you a hell butterfly? Toshiro tried to remember if that was right. He and Urahara Taishu forced us to spar with them. He motioned the cut on his cheek that had dry blood caked beneath it. He hadn't really had time to wash it off. We're really sorry. We would have come on time, but they kind of ambushed us and we apologize. He bowed slightly, turning to throw a glare at Naruto so he would do the same. Naruto took the hint, pouting and dropping into his own bow to appease the boy. Hope the bastard's happy, my back hurts. He whimpered and tried to straighten his back into an upright position once more. I'm going to kill that old man next time I see him. Oh, this thing? The black-robed Shinigami instructor held up a rather dead-looking butterfly by the wing. It would seem it died on the way here. Excuses aren't tolerated in my class, you know. And this is rather pathetic. Hell, butterflies only work properly for Shinigami who know how to use them. Only an idiot would kill the thing before it reached its destination. A sigh escaped the young man as he tapped his foot. You know what this means, don't you? I'll have to assign you both detentions for tonight. Wait, what? Toshiro demanded, completely dumbfounded. It died? Wait, you can't just give us detention, I'm serious. Kurosaki Taisha sent that hell butterfly because he and Urahara Taisha fought us. How else do you think we got all beat up like this? He motioned himself and Naruto. And we even have the swords to prove it. He motioned the sword tied to his side. Contact them now if you don't believe us, I'm serious. We're really sorry, we didn't mean to miss anything. What did I just say? The instructor demanded. I do not accept excuses. You were late, with no actual reason or proof to the contrary that you had permission not to attend, so you will face the consequences. He sniffed. Don't make me repeat myself again. The class giggled and laughed from their positions in the courtyard, pointing at the two new students who looked like they had been through a blender and put on whipped. Naruto just stood there, dumbfounded. It seemed that Captain Kurosaki truly was the master of incompetence. If ever there was one. Toshiro didn't know what to say. He turned to Naruto, opening his mouth, and then closing it again before turning back to the teacher. He really wanted to yell at him, but something told him that would be a bad idea. So, he just grumbled, crossing his arms and looking away from all the students laughing, waiting for the teacher to go on with the class so he could learn something before the end of the day. He was going to give the so-called Kurosaki Taishu a piece of his mind the next time they met. Naruto couldn't stand it any longer. What the hell do you mean? We're fucking beat up in places you wouldn't care to look. Now, don't just stand there acting all lordly and high and mighty. I demand you fucking call those pricks and set the record straight. I'm sorer than I care to describe here. I ain't going to no detention tonight, you bastard. His face was flushed from all the shouting, his anger boiling at the injustice the teacher had laid out before them. I won't stand for this. Not to mention he was still riled up from the fight and wanted to vent on somebody. Toshiro's eyes were so wide his eyeballs threatened to fall out of his head. He didn't. He turned to look at the teacher, absolutely horrified. Oh God, he is so dead. Thank God I kept my mouth shut. The young teacher raised his head imperiously with a blatant roll of his eyes. I've heard the same stuff 1,001 times, Gaki. Like I'm going to give you what you want. Stand with the rest of the students, and kindly be quiet. I shall continue the lesson like this never happened if you don't utter another word. The fuck? Did I not say be quiet? The instructor hissed through clenched teeth. You're trying my patience. Like you had any. Why you? He stopped and collected himself, coughing. Fine, if that's the way it is, then a week's worth of detention. There was a jeering sort of look to the young man's face. Anything else you want to say? Do tell, I'll just be increasing your amount of detentions by 5 each time you open your mouth. I don't see a MFHFH. Naruto was cut off rather quickly by a hand on his mouth. Toshiro had, at last, covered Naruto's big mouth. Shut up. He hissed. We already have detention tonight, and if you don't stop mouthing off at the teacher, you're going to end up with an eternity's worth. Just calm down, we'll have Kurosaki Taishu and Urahara Taishu explain it to him later, alright? 5, 10, 15, do you want more? Questioned the Shinigami teacher mockingly before directing his gaze to Toshiro specifically. And I'm glad you're going to be joining him in those long days of detention. Wouldn't want him to go insane from solitude, now would we? Toshiro stared at the teacher with wide eyes, his hand still over Naruto's mouth. Wait, what? What the fuck did I do? He didn't dare voice these words aloud, but he really wanted to. What the hell had he done to deserve this? He was making Naruto shut up so that he could keep teaching the class, and instead, he got detention with Naruto? That was just wrong, and Toshiro was going to be talking to someone about this. The teacher narrowed his eyes pointedly before starting back on his previous lecture. Now, as I was saying, the key to Kido is concentration. You must train your mind sufficiently to make the best use of the demon arts. We'll begin with a low-level Hada spell. Who knows what Hada number 33 is? It was a standard question that anyone who had read the textbook would know. Naruto's blank expression gave testament to the fact he hadn't a clue what the man was going on about. Toshiro rolled his eyes at the confused look on Naruto's face and would have answered, but someone else beat him to it. Yamachika-sensei? Toshiro turned to look at the girl standing beside him. She looked very prim and proper with her hair tied back tightly and glasses resting on the bridge of her nose. I believe I know the answer to that question. What do you want, a medal? Toshiro mumbled under his breath. It was low enough that the only person who would have heard him was Naruto. Head number 33 is Sukatsui, the translation for it being blue fireball. The incantation for it is: O ruler, mask of flesh and blood, all creations of the universe, fluttering of the wings, ye who bears the name of man. Trust and temperance, strike but slightly your claw upon this wall which feigns ignorance of sin, Toshiro interrupted, drawling out the long incantation in an almost bored fashion. The girl who had been replying turned to glare at him. Toshiro ignored her. Yumichika sympathized with the girl, really he did. He could already tell these two were trouble. Glancing down, he took note of their names, Hitsugaya and Uzumaki. The detention teacher needed to be notified immediately of the soon-to-be familiar faces they were just asking for punishment with their current attitudes. And that, Hitsugaya-kun, is exactly why you will be accompanying your troublemaking friend. Ise-chan, if you would, could you state in your own words how Sukatsui can be used? He asked politely of the incensed girl. She probably wasn't used to such rude behavior from her classmates if the expression on her face was anything to go by. Naruto snorted at Toshiro's earlier comment on the girl, but didn't dare say anything out loud. It was all for nothing, however, since it seemed Yumichika was on a detention spree. 2 more detentions added on to your first 22, by the way. A sweet, angelic smile from their pretty boy of a teacher. Go on, Ise-chan. Gladly, Yumichika-sensei. The girl glared at Toshiro once more before reciting exactly what he had said, word for word. Toshiro rolled his eyes, his arms crossed. This was ridiculous. Their teacher was out to get them. By the end of the day, they would have enough detentions to last them their entire stay here in the school. Maybe even beyond graduation. This is so stupid, Toshiro muttered. Who do you think the head is in this place? I want to complain. We're totally being targeted, he whispered to Naruto in a conspiring tone. The girl that Toshiro had interrupted raised her hand. Excuse me, Yumichika-sensei? They're talking again. She motioned Naruto and Toshiro. I'm going to find out who that bitch is and kill her. Toshiro's eyebrow twitched angrily. 2 more detentions for talking, Yumichika stated crisply and then sent the students off in pairs to work on the spell incantation, walking around to observe and correct his students as needed. Naruto couldn't hold in a laugh any longer. It was just too ironic. Why is this place out to get us, Hitsutine? First those loons, now the pretty boy, what next? He snorted and crossed his arms. So, you know how to do this stuff? Don't say that, dumbass, or we will have something else, Toshiro muttered. And yes, I happen to know how to do this. I'll shut that smug bastard of a teacher right up. With his hands, he placed the palm of his right against the inside of his left elbow, his left arm outstretched. O ruler, mask of flesh and blood, all creations of the universe, fluttering of the wings, ye who bears the name of man. Truth and temperance, strike but slightly your claw upon this wall which feigns ignorance of sin. Head number 33, Sukatsui. A strong blue flame shot out of Toshiro's hand, slamming into a target that had to have been about 5 meters away and blowing the entire thing to smithereens. Toshiro lowered his hand with a smirk. Kiddo, check, he thought to himself. Wow. Naruto commented in awe, smiling. Me next. Me next. He copied Toshiro's earlier movements, recited the incantation, and aimed. A small fireball burst forth from the palm of his hand, starting out like an old car before finally dying and falling to the ground, turning to a simple ball of ash where it lay. What the? No fair. Keep trying there, Uzumaki-kun, the teacher Yumichika, commented from behind before moving on. A good distance away, he pulled out a mirror and fixed his hair, checking his complexion for any imperfections while he was at it. Toshiro glared at Yumichika before getting back into position, Naruto beside him. Hey, do you think he's doing it on purpose? You know, conveniently not noticing me get it right when I'm the first one to have done it so far, and then showing up when you happen to bomb? He glanced around. Everyone else's targets were still intact. Even the girl that he'd pissed off was having troubles, her fireball only getting a little bigger than Naruto's before disappearing. Yumichika snapped his mirror shut and turned to continue his rounds, taking particular note of the girl who was getting quite frustrated with the spell as it kept extinguishing before she could throw it. You're doing great work, Ise-chan, don't look so serious. He tapped her forehead. You'll get wrinkles. Naruto stiffened when he heard the teacher speak. It must be a conspiracy, he muttered back to Toshiro, agreeing with the boy. It must be. Thank you, Yumichika-sensei. She smiled brightly. And please call me Nanao-chan. She bowed her head slightly. Toshiro turned to Naruto. Call me Nanao-chan, Yumichika-sensei. He imitated before rolling his eyes, positioning himself again, and blasting white lightning out of his palm, hitting a target 7 feet away. God, it felt good letting out his anger like this. Of course, because he had just done lightning instead of fire, Yumachika would probably yell at him for not following directions. Never mind the fact that lightning was harder to generate than fire. The two boys already knew the teacher was out to get them. Was that lightning just now? Yumachika demanded at once, glaring at the two misfits standing nearby Nanao and her partner's workstation. Did I not say we would be working on a fire spell? Do you not care to follow my rules? They're there for a reason, you know. Naruto scoffed under his breath and bit back an angry retort. Their instructor was so full of himself. I apologize, Toshiro said with a small bow. I got frustrated and it just sort of happened. Like I predicted, he doesn't care. The boy turned to continue practicing when he noticed someone watching him and Naruto out of the corner of his eye. He turned and saw a dark figure leaning back against the wall of a nearby building. Dark eyes were watching the two boys intently, making Toshiro uneasy, but he ignored it, turning to Naruto. Your turn, dumbass. Try to upstage her while he's looking, will ya? Naruto rubbed at the back of his neck, the hairs there standing on end as if he was being watched. He shrugged off the feeling and nodded to Toshiro. I'll give it my all this time. He closed his eyes and proceeded with the usual ritual, reciting and holding his arms appropriately. He took a breath and then opened his eyes, only to be disappointed as his fire shriveled up and died. He almost wanted to cry. The day couldn't get any worse. No way it could. Stupid fireball, why wouldn't it just cooperate? So sad, Yumachika commented briefly and then walked over to the other people beside the pair. Is it just me, or do you want to wring his scrawny little neck too? Toshiro inquired angrily as he blasted another fireball at a target. He couldn't seem to get past 7 meters, which was still further than anyone else around them, so he wasn't too concerned. We need to get you to improve so when we pass our exams, we can shove it in his freaky eyebrowed face, he spat out angrily. Naruto nodded, yawning. I mean, what is up with that eyebrow? Is it supposed to mean something? Like he can only mate with apes? He snorted and tried the fireball spell again. I don't get why this stupid thing isn't working for me, though. Am I doing something differently than you, Hitsuteam? Toshiro scratched the back of his head with a frown. Well, I don't think so, but what you said is kinda weird. I mean, you broke Kayandano's machine when he was measuring spirit energy, so maybe it's not turned on right now or something? Toshiro shrugged. There's gotta be a reason, but I'm sure you'll get it. It's all about controlling your spirit energy. I only know how to do it because I used to practice Shunpa on the streets. The sound of something exploding made Toshiro jump and he turned to see Nanao giggling, looking excitedly at a target 2 meters away. He snorted. His was 7 meters away, but he was sure Yumachika would praise her on her achievement. Whatever, he turned back to Naruto. Naruto rolled his eyes as he heard the predicted squeals of joy from Yumachika as he gushed over Nanao's work, praising her to the high heavens. Absolutely fantastic, Nanao-chan. Fantastic doesn't even begin to describe your accomplishment. It only took you 7 tries to get that far. Amazing! Brilliant! The boy suddenly felt sick to his stomach. Ugh, is that the most disturbing thing you've ever seen or what? He asked Toshiro, pointing in the direction of the Shinigami teacher embracing Nanao as if she were an esteemed daughter. Tell me about it. My 7 meters puts her 2 meters to shame, but whatever. He shrugged. It's just about the end of class, anyway, since we arrived so late. I'm fine with the fireball, so you go ahead and use up the rest of the time yourself to try and get it to work. Toshiro crossed his arms as he stood beside Naruto, shifting uncomfortably with the sword in his belt. He pulled it out and stared at it, noticing a sash going across it. Frowning, he pulled it out and slung it over one shoulder, smiling now that he was more comfortable with the sword securely on his back. He liked that. Naruto glanced at Toshiro and smirked. Ah, don't you look cute with your sword? But to think it has Captain Cooties. He gagged and pretended to shiver. Oh, that reminds me, he pulled his own sword out from where he had forgotten about it, having stuck it into the obi that held the top of his gi closed. He tugged at the sash that Toshiro had just now noticed was attached to each of the swords and slung it across his back as well, the hilt over the opposite shoulder. There, much better. It felt like that sword was disrupting my progress. He frowned. Is that even possible? With you, probably. Toshiro smirked. But it's cool, you and I are kind of similar, except for the fact that, you suck at this and I don't. He snickered slightly. Come on, keep practicing. The platinum-haired boy turned his head slightly to look at the figure he noticed earlier. He was still leaning against the wall, and Toshiro wished he could see him more clearly. He was starting to freak the young boy out, what with him just standing there, his eyes fixed on Toshiro and Naruto. He hoped their class would end soon so they could get away from him. All right, stop what you're doing, Yumichika interrupted the students from their hard work. That's all for today. You can leave for your next class now. He smiled cheerfully and waved. Have a great day, kids. Naruto grumbled, arms falling back to his sides and cursing. He had almost had it. With the sword on his back, he had better control over the immense power that was just waiting to be used. Coming to a decision, he took off his sword and handed it to Toshiro. Here, hold this for a moment, Hitsuteam. I want to try something. He dropped his hands back into the required positions and recited the incantation as the students slowly began to depart the courtyard, Yumichika ushering them out. Toshiro waited, ignoring everyone who had begun to walk away. As soon as the last word from the incantation left Naruto's mouth, the white-haired boy standing beside him flew off his feet from the rush of power that was emitting from Naruto's hand. He felt the heat from where he sat about a meter away, the fire burning his face slightly and the ends of his hair becoming singed. He stared with wide eyes, unable to look away, as a long line of bright blue flame erupted out of Naruto's palm, going well past 15 meters. Kami-sama Toshiro's hands were shaking, his right hand still clenched around Naruto's sword. Isshin would have been fried if he'd stayed leaning against the wall he'd been at all lesson, but he moved at the last second, avoiding the tail end of the flames. He watched Naruto and Toshiro, the blonde with his hand still extended, and the other boy sitting on the ground in shock. So Toshiro can do it on the first try, and Naruto has explosive power. Better let Urahara know before he heads off to watch them during their next class. The captain turned and disappeared. Naruto blinked a few times, the tingling sensation running throughout his body increasing in intensity. How strange, he thought. Wasn't it supposed to decrease after the spell was cast? What was this strong surge of power anyway? It was starting to make him feel lightheaded. The explosion had halted the class on their way out of the courtyard. Even Yumichika turned to see what the commotion was about. The students gasped as if one entity and started screaming in terror, the flames still ablaze around the area Naruto had hit. It truly was a sight to behold. Naruto? Toshiro whispered shakily, struggling back to his feet as he regarded the other boy. Are you okay? Hey, can you hear me? He put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and suddenly, he couldn't breathe. He felt an indescribably large weight pushing down on him, almost like an unseen force was trying to crush him. His knees shook and he struggled to inhale, but couldn't. His hands went slack, dropping the sword Naruto had handed to him as he fell to his knees. The second his hand left Naruto's shoulder, he gasped in a lungful of air, coughing slightly before looking up at the blonde's face from his position on the ground. What the hell was that? What happened? I've never felt like that before. Was it Naruto? Naruto shook his head, trying to clear his jumbled thoughts and shake off the feeling he was experiencing. It was no use. He fainted before he realized what had happened, slumping against Toshiro before sliding down to the ground. Yumichika paused in mid-step when he saw the blonde boy faint. He would admit his curiosity was piqued, but he decided to ignore them for the moment and calm down the class before someone, like a captain, witnessed his students running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Naruto? Toshiro was glad he wasn't feeling the same thing as before when he held the blonde now, shaking him slightly. Naruto! Can you hear me? Hey! Is he alright? Toshiro looked up to see the bitch, I see Nanao, crouched beside him and Naruto, inspecting the blonde worriedly. What happened? Why did he faint like that? I don't know, Toshiro admitted, looking down at the blonde. The boy cut himself off. Would it be a good idea to tell everyone about what Naruto had just done? It was causing a panic, and if they found out it was him who did it, he didn't want to risk it. He just fainted for no reason. The whole area erupted and he fainted. Was he hit? She looked at Toshiro, then frowned. You look more injured than he does, your face is burned. Toshiro said nothing. He didn't know what to say. Naruto groaned, clutching at his head as he came to. The loud voices that acted as his alarm clock were as persistent as ever. Would you guys give it a break? My head hurts, damn it. He smothered his head under a pillow. I need sleep. Lots and lots of sleep. Blissful, uninterrupted sleep. I feel like I got ran over and sent to hell. Wait, no, that's not right. I'm already there. Haha. Shit, Naruto, are you okay? Toshiro asked, ignoring Nanao as she continued to argue with him. He was more concerned about the blonde. Thank Kami you're awake. What the hell happened? 1 second you were fine, and the next, you were passing out. Like I keep telling you, he was hit with whatever it was that torched the entire area, Nanao snapped, rolling her eyes. Honestly, it's the only logical explanation. The lack of burns just suggests that the center of the flames wasn't hot at all. That's a little backwards, Nanao-chan, Toshiro teased, the girl huffing and crossing her arms before looking away. Fine, see if I ever worry about you again. First of all, you were worried about Naruto, not me, and second of all, no one asked you to be worried. In case you didn't notice, I'm the one who carried him all the way here. Ugh, didn't I tell you two to shut up, the blonde complained, snuggling deeper into the blankets in weak protest. I'm not moving from this spot. It's so nice and warm and comfortable, and completely free of insane people. Minus you two, of course. He grinned into the pillow. Hey, did you not hear me? Toshiro hit Naruto in the shoulder. I carried you. Again. It seems to be a common occurrence between you and me. You have to stop passing out or whatever, 'cause I'm getting sick of carrying you everywhere. You're not the lightest person in the world, and you drooled on me. He winced, motioning his shoulder, where it was clear a patch of his GI was darker than the rest. Drooled, dumbass? It was gross. I'm going to have to rub disinfectant on my shoulder or something. Will you stop complaining? Can't you tell he's injured? Injured? What do you know? Are you a doctor? Well, I could be, Nanao snapped back. Naruto repeatedly slammed his head against the soft, cushy pillow, wishing, no longing, for it to be something more substantial like a brick wall. Yeah, that would do. Anything to put him back into unconsciousness and out of earshot from those two. They were getting on his nerves. What was with them? Did Toshiro have a crush or something? He paused, contemplating that last idea before smirking into his pillow. His stomach suddenly growled, seemingly going against its master's wish to sleep more. Obviously it wanted food and wouldn't be appeased any other way. Damn. Hey, lovebirds, what time is it? How long was I out? Lovebirds? Nanao asked, appalled. You're an idiot. Toshiro rolled his eyes. And you've been out for about 2 hours. It's almost the end of lunch. We have Hakuta afterwards, so we're going to need the energy. You up for grabbing some food? I suppose so. I wasn't asking you, Toshiro said dryly, giving Nanao a look. Then why were you directing it to me? She demanded. I was asking Naruto, he exclaimed. You're an even bigger idiot than he is. Don't you dare speak to me like that. I hit the 2-meter mark in Kidu. She sniffed. And I hit the 7, only no one noticed since the freaky eyebrow guy didn't care to mention it 'cause he's out to get the two of us. He turned back to Naruto. Dumbass. Food? Yeah, I won't be getting any sleep, now, thanks to you two bickering nonstop. He pushed away from the pillow and threw the cover back, sluggishly getting up and rubbing his head. Did you remember to bring that sword, Hitsutine? The blonde questioned, stretching out his stiff muscles with a loud yawn. And man, hand-to-hand combat right after lunch? Damn, that sucks. Toshiro motioned the sword resting against the wall beside the blonde's bed, his own still strapped to his back. He stood up from the chair he'd been sitting in, waiting for Naruto to be ready. Nanao stood up from her seat, as well, smoothing out her GI before glaring at the two boys. Well, if I'm not invited for lunch with you two, I suppose I'll go find someone else to eat with. Okay, Toshiro said simply, waiting for Naruto. Nanao let out an insulted scoff before storming out of the room, either boy saying a word as she left. Once the door was slammed, rather loudly, too, Toshiro moved a bit closer to Naruto. Hey, what the hell was that out there? He whispered. I didn't tell anyone what really happened, but you scared the shit out of me. Naruto glanced at Toshiro, faking a smile. It was a fluke? He walked over and grabbed the sword, strapping to his back like before. Sighing, he turned to face the platinum-haired boy again. Look, I really don't know how to describe it just happened. Rubbing sheepishly at the nape of his neck, he stepped closer. Let's just keep it a secret for now, okay? We'll figure it out eventually. I hope so, because you didn't see yourself. Toshiro shivered even remembering it. Your face was just completely emotionless, and once it passed, you were swaying on the spot. I went to help you, but when I touched you, he cut himself off, trying to find the words to describe the feeling that had washed over him. It felt like someone was squeezing my body. I couldn't breathe and I could barely even stand. It was like your Ryatsu was so high it was actually crushing the air and everything else near you. The feeling only went away when you passed out. Toshiro sighed, rubbing his face. This is serious, we need to talk to someone about this, but there isn't really anyone we can tell. The only person I trust is Kaindano, but we don't even know how to get in touch with him. Naruto shrugged half-heartedly. But would he even know the answer? And hey, what if those loons know how to contact him? Didn't they say they knew Kaindano? He frowned slightly. But forget it, alright? It was probably nothing. Like I said, it was probably just a fluke. I mean, I never got it right before, so why did I just happen to get it right then? And with such an incredible burst of power? I don't know, Naruto, but we need to talk to someone about this. It's not normal. I've never seen anyone with that much Ryatsu, and I've seen my fair share of Shinigami. There's this one captain named Kenpachi Zaraki, and you're putting him to shame with that fireball you did. I don't know if it's because of who you are, your past, or what, but there's something up with your body and your Ryatsu level, and we need to find out what it is, otherwise someone could get hurt. Toshiro rubbed his face slightly, as if emphasizing the fact. The ends of his hair was singed, for crying out loud, and his face was burned as if he'd been out in the sun too long. Naruto looked down, his frown deepening. Sorry, he muttered softly. I did that, huh? What if he hurt more people? Maybe Toshiro was right. Maybe they should tell someone. But for right now, why don't we grab something to eat? He was suddenly back to his usual happy self, bouncing up to Toshiro's side and looping his arm through the other boys. Let's go, hits the team. Toshiro smiled slightly before punching Naruto in the arm and heading for the door, exiting it with him. I hope there's still food left. We were gone for a while, and it's almost the end of lunch. We're gonna have to eat fast, or else we'll be late for our next class, and seeing as how we were late for our first and missed our second completely, I think we need to make it on time for our third. We're not really giving people the best first impression of us. He chuckled slightly. And don't worry about going out of control. After you broke Kayandano's machine, I've kinda been expecting great things from you. He smirked slightly. Oh, I'm flattered, Naruto responded in kind, his tone dry. All I want is food. Plus, I don't know how you call being almost fried a great expectation. Please enlighten me, O wise one, for us beneath you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. He grinned. But you have to admit, those singed split ends probably are doing all the better for it, any? Toshiro rolled his eyes, shoving Naruto slightly as they entered the cafeteria. All I'm saying is that the blue flames you'd started with disappointed the hell out of me when I knew you broke Kayandano's machine thing. Once the huge blast happened at the end, it made a little bit more sense. Toshiro frowned as they got in line. Though I have to wonder why it took you so long to finally release all that energy. Seems a little fishy to me, but then again, what do I know about Ryatsu? He shrugged and grabbed a bowl of soup and some water. Naruto did likewise and took a seat, gulping down some water before answering the other boy. Well, I admit, I didn't expect those flames to be so weak, but I swear, it was like something had plugged up my Ryatsu, as you keep calling it. It was really weird. Then I had you hold this sword, he gestured to the blade on his back, and I was fine. Or it could have been all the people around? Once they left, it happened, so that could be why. He shrugged. Dunno. It's a mystery. And hey, during that kidda class, did you get the weird feeling we were being watched? He slurped down some of his soup as he waited for a reply. First of all, it wouldn't make sense that you could suddenly do it when nobody but me was watching, and secondly, someone was watching us. He rolled his eyes at the blonde. And you say you were a ninja before you died. How did you not notice the dark figure standing against the wall that you eventually torched? He frowned, his spoon halfway to his mouth. Come to think of it, I wonder if he got barbecued. If he didn't move in time, he's seriously dead. Shrugging, he went back to eating, not really concerned. The man had been spying on him and Naruto. If he got barbecued, that was his own fault, and not at all Toshiro's concern. It is weird, though, that you felt like your Ryatsu was all plugged up. He frowned, then tilted his head slightly. Then, you said when you gave me the sword, it was fine again. He bit his bottom lip, thinking. Yeah, Naruto mused, twirling the spoon in his soup. After that, it felt like whatever was stopping me was removed and I just got this huge rush of power again. It was really hard to control, and even after I had used half of it up when I blasted off that spell, it still felt like it was steadily increasing. I guess I couldn't handle it all and fainted. It was really weird, you know? It was almost like when he halted mid-sentence, his thoughts straying back to the times he had called upon the fox's chakra to aid him in battle. But this power, it felt like it was all his. Then why couldn't he control it? What was going on? So basically, once the sword was gone, you felt like the plug was gone? Toshiro stared at Naruto's sword. Tell me, now that it's back on your back, can you feel the Ryatsu tingling through your body? Like this morning, remember how you felt before we met up with the captains? Do you feel the same way, or does it feel like your Ryatsu is blocked again? Toshiro was getting incredibly suspicious. Naruto gave Toshiro a strange look, but thought about what the other boy was saying. Now that it had been brought to his attention, it did feel like the plug was back. He was feeling more antsy, too, than he had when he'd been lying peacefully in the hospital bed. It was almost as if his body was being denied of something it craved. That's strange, it's like I feel numb. Nothing, nada, zilch, I can't feel what I felt earlier. His eyes widened. You don't think? Naruto, give me the sword. Toshiro held his hand out for it. Now that he thought about it, when he touched Naruto earlier and had felt like he couldn't breathe, he himself had been holding the sword. If it really did what he thought it did, it would explain why he'd reacted the way he had when touching Naruto's shoulder. He waited patiently for the other boy to unstrap his sword, being sure to focus on how his body felt, aware of all the reiatsu flowing through him. He concentrated hard on the feeling of it as he waited for the sword to fall into his hand. The blonde quickly pulled his sword out and laid the hilt in Toshiro's hand. Once the blade left him, he felt his own reiatsu return with a rush, blinking a few times to overcome the strong feeling that washed over him now that nothing was stopping the reiatsu from flowing properly. "Whoa," was the only intelligent thing he could think of to say, staring at Toshiro with raised eyebrows. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking, my friend?" Toshiro glared down at the sword as he held it, feeling his own reiatsu plugged up now that he held it. "That damn bastard. I can't believe he did this to you." He looked up at Naruto. "This was a blatant attack on you, because I feel totally fine with my own sword." Putting Naruto's sword down on the table, Toshiro removed his own from his back and handed it to Naruto. "Do you feel any different when you hold my sword?" He himself felt no difference when the sword left his hand. Naruto shook his head. "None. What's with that Urahara guy? Why would he do that to me? And only me? I didn't piss in his Wheaties," he grumbled under his breath. "He wasn't even fighting me. I should have just asked the old man for a sword. At least he gives out regular ones." He huffed and handed the sword back to Toshiro. "So what now? We return it?" Toshiro frowned down at Naruto's sword as he put his own back where it belonged. "I'm more concerned with why he targeted you." He folded his hands together and propped his elbows up on the table, a thoughtful frown on his face. "We were new here, nobody knew us but Kayandano. On our first day, we conveniently run into two people who want to fight us, both of whom conveniently have an extra sword each." His frown deepened. "It's possible that Kayan mentioned you breaking his reiatsu measurer and Urahara Taishu wanted to see just how much you had. What if the person watching us at Kido was doing so to report back? Don't you find it strange that we were targeted to begin with? I mean, my reiatsu level may be higher than normal, but yours is off the charts. You'd be an interesting experiment." He bit his bottom lip before standing up. "Come on." Picking up his sword and resheathing it on his back, Naruto followed behind the other boy warily. "Where are we going now? Class? And your theory seems awfully long and drawn out, don't you think? What if you're way off base and it was just an accident? It can happen." The blonde shrugged, brushing frayed bangs out of his face in annoyance. "And I don't like you calling me some kind of experiment. I mean, what kind of human being would do that to another?" "Oh, wait, I forgot there's plenty of people who would." He sighed. Fine. So, I'll just humor you. Why would two captains target us? That really makes no sense. If they were just random people, I could understand it a bit better, but these people have everything to lose and hardly anything to gain from that. Look, every division in the Godai 13 has a purpose. One of them is the division for the Research Institute of Technology. If the captain of that division just so happens to be Urahara, wouldn't that explain a lot? I mean, yes, it's weird we were targeted by captains, but you're interesting enough for people to want to target you, and who other than the head of the Research Institute? Seriously, he's up to something. You're like his own personal guinea pig, which is why I want to find another Shinigami and ask if Urahara Taishu is the head of that division." They were outside by now, and he looked around. His eyes found two other Shinigami arguing, one wearing a pink haori over his normal Shinigami robes. The other just had the normal white overcoat, showing his captain rank. Perfect. He headed towards them. Naruto trailed after, not seeing why exactly they had to ask them. Those men were arguing just like Urahara and Kurosaki had been. It was almost too eerie. Why did captains like arguing in front of the trainee academy, and just randomly showing up in courtyards? Was it out of habit or something? Excuse me? Toshiro asked, the white-haired captain in front of him holding up one finger to halt the other captain's protests so he could turn to look at Toshiro. "I was just..." "Oh my God!" The boy jumped a mile high at the scream and was suddenly wrapped in a bear-like hug. "Your hair is the same color as mine. This is so rare. Oh, how exciting. Look, Shunsui." Toshiro sighed. Why are all captains crazy? He truly did wonder why. "Excuse me, I just have a question, then I need to be off to class. Is Urahara Taisha head of the Research Institute of Technology?" The boy struggled to get free of the bear hug. Shunsui turned his laughter into a cough. Insulting his friend during this crucial argument would get him nowhere. "Yes, Juchan, now please calm down before the boy dies of embarrassment." He glanced over at the other boy who was standing behind the white-haired one, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, that sword looks rather familiar. Doesn't it, Juchan?" Is that why you want to know about Urahara, that old pervert? Naruto paled. Oh, great. The man's a pervert to boot. Good thing we'll most likely never see them again. Well, if we do, I'll just let Hitsu take care of it and run like hell. Yeah, sounds like a plan. Toshiro finally got free of the overzealous man and stumbled back a step. Yes, please. He gave my friend that sword, and I wanted to ask him a few things about it. Well, to answer your question, yes, he is the head of that particular division. Why, what's wrong with the sword? Inquired the white-haired man curiously. Toshiro turned to look at Naruto before laughing slightly, rubbing the back of his head as he looked back at the captain before him. Nothing at all. We just wanted to return it. We also need to speak to Kurosaki Taishu for making us get a month's worth of detention. The last part, about the detentions, was grumbled under his breath. Well, thanks for your time. He started to turn in order to leave, but a hand fell on his shoulder. Excuse me, were you aware of the fact that you have a cut with dry blood on your face? Toshiro's hand flew up to it. He had completely forgotten about it. And both of you have singed hair. Just what are the teachers teaching you nowadays? Naruto laughed a little to cover up Toshiro's awkward pause. It's nothing. Really, nothing at all. We were just goofing off in class and things went a little haywire. Yeah, he finished lamely, scratching at his nose and darting his eyes from one captain to the other. He'd hate to see what they both would think if all their wounds were revealed. How would they explain that away? Let's go, Hitsu. We're going to be late again if we don't hurry, he trailed off, wincing at how familiar that sounded. Shunsui had his own curiosity piqued by now, and he wouldn't let those two children get away until he got some answers. Hold on a minute, kids. All you want to do is return that sword? We can do that for you, if you'd like. He grinned at the tall, white-haired captain that had his hand resting on the other boy's shoulder still. What do you say, Juchan? It's not too out of our way or anything. Out of our way? Oh, no. The white-haired man shifted so he was hugging Toshiro from behind, the boy stiff. Stay, we can help you get the swords back, but for a price. He smiled pleasantly. Spar with us. If you have swords from Urahara and Kurosaki, you're obviously worth our time. Those two don't just give away swords. You must have left an impression. What are your names anyway? What's the point in telling you, you'll just give us nicknames anyway? Toshiro sighed, his shoulders sagging in defeat. They were never getting to their next class on time. Try us. My name is Yukite Toshiro. 13th Division, Captain rank. And yours? He smiled pleasantly. Hitsugaya Toshiro. Juchan, why sparring? Shunsui sulked. He wasn't very partial to fighting day in and day out. He would much rather be doing something more constructive. How about I don't know? A friendly game of cards? Loser buys booze. Naruto's eyes widened in disbelief and looked helplessly at Toshiro. Please, no. We must escape. He hoped the other boy got the message he was trying to convey. Shunsui, what were we just discussing? Toshiro sighed, coughing into his hand slightly. You have a gambling problem, we need to get you out of it. You're also starting to get a drinking problem. I heard you showed up to the last Godai 13 meeting drunk. Toshiro caught Naruto's gaze and motioned for them to start inching away. As the two started tiptoeing backwards, Jishiro's hand shot out, the captain still facing Shunsui, and grabbed the back of his GI, practically choking him. You know you can't keep gambling all the time. He turned to Toshiro and smiled. Sorry, he's rather rude and never introduces himself. That's my best friend, Kairaku Shunsui. And your friend's name is? He motioned Naruto, whose arm Toshiro had grabbed when his own escape had been thwarted. Uzumaki Naruto. Oh. Shunsui, it's the guy Kaion-kun was telling Yamamoto-sensei about. Oh? Shunsui cocked his head, amused. Really? Kaion-kun was telling Yamaji about that squirt? He pointed to Naruto, who puffed up like an angry pigeon, chest expanding and face flushing. Hey, who are you calling a squirt? I'll have you know I'm taller than him. Naruto gestured wildly to Toshiro, almost slapping the boy in the face. Hitsu team, let me go. Shouldn't one of us escape and bring back up? He whined, tugging at his arm and trying to free himself. If anything, the white-haired boy's grip tightened. And once again, damn. Aren't they cute, Juchan? Shunsui crowed, walking over and wrapping Naruto up in a hug. Well, if Kaion-kun said good things about you, then you must be interesting. Come have tea and sake with us. Toshiro smirked at Naruto with a very obvious if I suffer then so do you look. He knew Naruto wouldn't bring back up anyway. The blonde would just run and leave him to the mercy of these two new psychos. Honestly, are any of the captains normal? I've yet to meet a damn normal one. These crazy people are starting to scare me. Cammy knows if I ever become a captain, I'm not going to be like this. We'd love to, Kairaka Taishu, but we actually have to go to class. Hakuda and all. He tried to get free of Jishiro's hold. And also, wasn't it Naruto you wanted as opposed to me? I'm just boring, nothing interesting about me at all. Kaien-kun said that the guy who came with Naruto-kun was just as impressive, so that must be you. He pinched Toshiro's cheek. The boy was considering biting his hand off. I'm so excited about all this. Naruto couldn't say much, what with being pinned to Shunsui's chest and trying his best not to suffocate, but he sure got a chuckle out of Yukate's rebuttal to Toshiro. The tea house it is, declared Shunsui, laughing heartily and crushing Naruto even closer. The blonde's oxygen supply was momentarily gone, and he gasped, eyes flying wide. He pounded on the man's chest as hard as he could. Need air. Shunsui, oblivious, didn't quite get the hint. Yes, let's go. Jushiro started dragging Toshiro along, turning to call over his shoulder. And you might not want to crush Naruto-kun into your chest. I doubt he's able to breathe very well. You're talking? Toshiro choked out, being dragged by the back of his GI. We have class. We'll send a hell butterfly. The last time a captain said that, we ended up with detentions. You worry too much. You don't worry enough. Shunsui owed and released his strong hold on Naruto. Maybe you aren't as tough as Kaien-kun gave you credit for. Naruto breathed in sweet air and pointed a shaky finger at the crazy, pink-covered captain. You are insane. Why thank you? That wasn't a compliment. I know, but I tend to reword insults into the form of compliments inside my head. A nice, kind, warm smile curved onto Shunsui's lips. Naruto doubted that meant anything good. We're being left behind, Naruto-kun. Come on. He slung an arm around the blonde's shoulders, ignoring the heap of objection that followed such an action. May the devil have mercy on my soul, he thought solemnly, slumping in defeat as Shunsui dragged him after Jushiro and his roommate. Toshiro groaned, one of Naruto's arms slung over his shoulder as he helped support the blonde's weight, while the other boy himself helped support Toshiro's. I can't feel my legs, he whined. And the blood on my face is permanently caked there. He continued onward with a short moan. And my hair is burned. He groaned. This was the worst day ever, and it's only our first day at the academy. I say we forever avoid Yukite Taishu, Kairaka Taishu, Kurosaki Taishu, and Urahara Taishu. He frowned. They all start with K or U, that'll be a good way to remember them. If we meet any more captains whose names start with K or U, we run, deal? Naruto frowned slightly. But wait a moment, doesn't Kaindano's name start with a K too? Should we run from him? I mean, he is prone to random kicking. Naruto moaned in pure anguish and leaned his weight further against Toshiro. Please, just kill me now. Put me out of my misery. I don't think I'll be able to survive a whole year here, no less 200 or more. Spare me the pain. Naruto-kun. Hitsugai-kun. There was a soft gasp and they turned their heads to see Momo waiting at their room's entrance, standing there all alone as she waited for her friend's return. What happened to you two? Are you hurt? Did something happen? Should I inform someone? And if so, who? She immediately rushed over and inspected the dried blood on Toshiro's cheek, trailing her index finger over the healing wound. How did you two get so? She didn't know what to say. Had their first day been a disaster? And here she was off making new friends and laughing and having a general good time. 1 second, Toshiro said to Momo before turning to Naruto. Kaindano's name is Shiba Kaien, so he doesn't fall under that category. He turned back to Momo. Captains did this to us, not to mention they caused us to have over 2 months' worth of detention. He sighed. Damn it, who would have thought our teacher for Hakuto was that eyebrow freak again? And how convenient that the hell butterfly died again. Do you think he's just lying? Toshiro asked Naruto as he helped drag him into their room. I mean, he is out to get us, but it'd be so mean to kill the poor, innocent little butterfly. It's just trying to make a living and there that eyebrow freak is, killing the poor things. He's probably jealous of their eyebrows. Naruto nodded sagely in return. I bet he is. He'd never have perfectly sloped eyebrows like them butterflies, pretty butterflies. Oh my god, what has this place done to you? Momo marched into the room behind them and shut the door afterwards. That's it, we're leaving. I'm not letting captains take advantage of you like this. She helped the two boys sit down on the closest bed. I won't stand for this. There was a decisive ring to her voice. You're going to lose your minds here if you stay. She checked their forehead for fevers and then walked over to the bathroom to grab a cold, wet rag to wash them up a bit. We're fine. Really, Toshiro insisted. As long as, we avoid people with creepy eyebrows, and any and all captains with names starting with K or U. He frowned before turning to Naruto. Come to think of it, aren't they the only people we met all day? That's a little concerning. We didn't meet a single normal person. Did you, Momo? 'Cause Kami-sama knows I'm not staying if there isn't at least one normal person. I can't be the only normal person. Well, especially not now, since I'm going crazy. Oh crap, I'm babbling 'cause I've gone insane. He clutched at his hair and tugged. Damn it! I'm going nuts. Naruto nodded again, this time with a sad look. It was bound to happen. This day has mentally scarred us for life. A zillion times over, I'm sure. He dropped his head into his hands and groaned. Please, Momo-chan, please tell me there's a nice, sane person here, besides you, that won't do horrible, crazy things to us. Momo laughed a bit nervously as she entered the room again and started wiping the blood from Toshiro's cheek. Well, there's my roommate, I suppose. Though she is a little ditzy. Another tentative giggle. Oh. And there's Rukia-chan, she's so sweet and showed me around. She trailed off, thinking. But come to think of it, all the teachers and such seemed a bit insane? Did you have crazy captains dragging you off by the collar for tea, too? Toshiro inquired. 'Cause between sparring with Urahara Taishu, getting 30 detentions from Yumachika-sensei, getting my hair singed and my face burned off by Naruto, being dragged off by the collar by Yukitake Taishu, getting more detentions from Yumachika-sensei, I'm seriously starting to wonder if any of the adults here are normal. Now I know Naruto's not an adult, but I needed to remind him of the fact that he almost burned my face off. Hey! I thought you said that was some great expectation realized. Naruto pouted, crossing his arms and flopping backwards onto the bed. He sat up abruptly when he heard something down the hallway. Momo! Someone screamed down the corridor in a bright, chipper voice. Momo, where are you? There was a huff. I've been wandering around for 10 minutes, I'm getting bored. Momo's eyes went impossibly wide and she let out a small eep before diving for the bed so the boys hid her from sight and saying a quick, hide me. Don't let her know I'm here. Why? Naruto asked, smiling senselessly. He was practically dead to world at this point from sheer exhaustion alone. Did you do something? No. But she's stalking me, came the muffled reply as Momo burrowed under the covers. And of course, there was nothing suspicious about a lump in the bed. Nothing at all. Naruto rolled his eyes and sighed tiredly. I give up at this point. Sure, we'll run with that the fit for you, so no need to worry. Anything else, Momo-chan? Be scared. Momo? There was a knock on the door. Momo, was that you? That voice sounds alarmingly familiar. Toshiro muttered, screwing up his face in thought. Where have I heard that voice before? I know I've heard it before. The door flew open, and the first thing Toshiro saw was breasts practically falling out of a GI. His face paled as he recognized the girl before him, her red hair falling over her shoulders. Hitsuke Yuen! She shrieked, bolting for him and wrenching him off the bed as she hugged him tightly. His face was buried in her bosom. Find a happy place. Find a happy place. Find a happy place. Toshiro's brain screamed at him as he clenched his eyes shut. God, it's been forever, Hitsuku-en. She pulled away. Momo! I found you! She poked the pile of blankets. What are you doing under there? Why are you even in Hitsuku-en's room? Matsumoto Ranjiku? Toshiro asked, almost afraid it would be true. Naruto fell over in shock. Who the hell is that, and shouldn't it be illegal to have assets that large? They're probably a whole other entity by themselves. He could only stare and pray to God this woman wasn't crazy as well. Beneath the covers, Momo shivered and stayed wrapped up in them. She has Hitsugaya-kun now, she has him, she won't bother me for the rest of the night, right? And wait, is she insinuating something about me being in the boys' dorm? She burst out from her burrow of covers and stood up on the bed, placing her hands on her hips. What about you, Ranjiku-chan? What are you doing here? I came to find you, Momo. She held her arms out, as if waiting for a hug. You disappeared so fast after dinner. I missed you. She pouted. Rukia-chan says you're ignoring me? But that's not true, is it? She smiled widely. Ranjiku, what, I'm so confused. Toshiro rubbed his forehead as he sat down on the bed. His legs hurt too much for him to support himself much longer, anyway. Last time I saw you was right before I met Momo. What happened to you? You went out for food and then just sort of disappeared. Oh, that? She giggled. Shinigami found me and made me come here. They didn't let me go back out to find you, but I knew they would end up bringing you here eventually, so I just waited. It's so good to see you, Hitsuko-in. She grabbed him and pressed him tightly to her chest again, swinging him almost violently from side to side. Momo ducked behind Naruto, and the blonde blinked. I hope you don't expect me to save you from that. I told you to be scared. Well, yeah, but I wasn't expecting, well, you know. He continued to stare, bemused. Was it even physically possible to support that much weight? Wow, that girl probably got a better workout than he did every day. As if finally noticing Naruto, Ranjika let Toshiro go and squealed. New friend. Awesome. She threw herself at Naruto and hugged him just as tightly, his face also buried in her chest due to him being a similar height as Toshiro. You're so adorable, oh my. Where did you find him? He's so cute. Yes, cute, Toshiro coughed, rubbing his neck. Enjoy, have fun. You can take him. Disappear with him. He won't mind. Right, Momo? Momo can be my roommate, you can have Naruto. Toshiro tried to push the redhead and the blonde towards the door, but it was harder than he'd anticipated. Nuh! Naruto cried in choked protest, pushing away from the officially dubbed crazy woman. I'm innocent, take them. He nodded his head in the direction of Momo, and then Toshiro. His body was still pressed firmly against her, and it was becoming a bit disorienting. Oh great, I might just faint again. It was with realization and relief he pretended to do so to escape her clutches. Ranjika pulled away from Naruto slightly and gasped. Naruto-kun? Oh no! Naruto! With that, panic struck the heavily endowed girl as she held onto Naruto's shoulders, shaking him wildly in a horrified frenzy. Naruto-kun! Wake up! Hitsuko-in, what should we do? Momo, get help! She continued to shake Naruto as she spoke, not even looking at him anymore. Toshiro just covered his face with both hands. This was going to be insane. The captains were out to get them. The eyebrow freak was out to get them, and now Ranjiku? Would they ever get a break? My god, woman, what is your problem? Shouted Naruto, not enjoying being shaken to the point where he believed his brain had been sufficiently loosened. Get your paws off me. Momo-chan, help me out. He glanced over in the direction Momo had been standing, and his mouth dropped open, aghast. Momo-chan? She had disappeared. Toshiro had to admit, Momo's stealth was improving. Maybe having Ranjiku as a roommate is good for her, he mused, before looking back at the pair. His eyes widened as he saw said girl staring at him. Hitsuko-in, you're injured. Are you okay? Ga. I'm fine. He waved his arms about in a panic, motioning Naruto. He's in worse shape than me. In fact, Momo is probably the worst off out of all of us, poor thing. You should go find her. You know, you're probably right. We still have to do our homework. She giggled and let Naruto go, dropping him to the ground. Bye, Hitsuko-in. She hugged him once more before kissing him sloppily on the cheek and bouncing out of the room,